Urgent. My sister's YouTube channel at Renawatif has been hacked. Please be aware of any strange or unusual content posted on her channel as it is no longer under her control. We urge you to subscribe to her new channel, Rena Fiction, to avoid any confusion or misinformation. Thank you for your understanding and support during this difficult time. Hello to all lovers of lemon scenes. I invite you all to my boosty so you can watch your favorite Naruto What If stories in complete comfort. A subscription to Naruto Lemon, the first video with a full lemon, is already on my boosty channel. Dare! Yes, wake up, your mother is heard in the head of an 8-year-old girl with bright red and, at the moment, tangled hair. Oh, 5 more minutes. Yes, no problem, but if you don't get up, you will be late for the first day of the academy. Don't grumble, coo. How much time? 7:45. You see now. There are still plenty of times. How much? Don't plow. In a huge clearing in the forest, surrounded by tall trees and covered with soft silky grass, next to a gorgeous waterfall lay a 9-tailed fox. Drops from the waterfall fell on the dark red wool, making it glitter and shine in the artificial sun, which was periodically covered by fluffy flakes of clouds. Somewhere in the middle of the clearing stood a huge cage wall, stretching far into the distance. Naruko would have gladly let the fox go, but he said that she could die, and it's easier to find a safer way. Well, His Majesty the Fox, so be it, will live for some more time in the Jinchuriki. She changed the design of the sewer at the age of 4, with the help of the fox's explanations. Uzumaki entered the inner world itself at the age of 3, her hair was then the color of wheat, and her eyes shone with the blue of the oceans. Flashback. What have I done to them? For what? And why today, on my birthday? I knew I didn't have to leave. But I really wanted ramen. AI. Hush. Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Damn. Swallowing tears, the girl thought, almost not feeling her body. Where am I? I died? Such thoughts arose in the girl when she opened her eyes. The pain here was not so strong, rather muffled. Looking around, she saw only dark walls, corridors leading into the distance, and icy water underfoot that chilled her skin. Drops of water fell from the walls like tears. Tears that haunted the girl all her life. Let her try to smile, but doing it alone is simply pointless. Naruko began to wander through the corridors, not really remembering the way. After a while, she went out into a huge hall. It differed from the others in that although the lighting was poor, she could see the details. Uzumaki had never seen such a large room in her life. Several of my apartments will fit here. After getting used to the lighting, Naruko finally noticed the huge cage that ran across the hall. Even without approaching her, Uzumaki felt all the power that emanated from such a strange place. Then, in the darkness of the cage, 2 red eyes opened, as if filled with blood. A paw with dark red hair tried to reach Naruko, but couldn't reach it. A growling voice sounded in the silence, the volume of which almost threw the blue-eyed woman out of the hall. Vessel, I didn't think that you would come so early. A large fox came out of the shadows, whose vessel counted 9 tails. Hello. Why, you're Kyubi-san, aren't you? The blonde asked in a trembling voice, looking with interest at the shiny fur of the fox. He was surprised at such a polite treatment, but did not show it. Do you know where I am? That is, we are with you. The 9 tails laughed out loud. So you don't know? You are my Jinchuriki, I am sealed in you. That's why everyone hates you. They think you are a demon. And we are in your inner world. To say Naruto was surprised was an understatement. But she decided to try to make friends with the fox, especially since he did not seem so evil to her. Kyubi-san, my name is Naruko Uzumaki. Well, what about you, Kyubi no Yoko? She decided to clarify. He only carefully examined the girl of 3 years. She is the only one who inquired about the name of the fox. No, Kyubi is just a nickname. Kurama's real name. But don't think you can control me. I am the great demon who nearly destroyed your pathetic village. And when I get out, I'll finish what I started. Okay, she replied cheerfully. Then she looked with some embarrassment and said. Kurama-san, can I ask you 2 questions? Well, go ahead. Kurama looked at the Jinchuriki with interest. First. Can I peep at you? The fox was specifically dependent on such a question. Naruko took that as a yes and walked through the cage. Going to the paw, she stroked it admiringly. And then ran her finger along the claw, which was slightly smaller than herself. How sharp. That's it, stroked and that's enough. Come on second. Kurama replied, already coming to his senses. You can train me, please. When I grow up, I will become Hokage and prove it to everyone who hates me. She spoke with such confidence that the fox himself heard and agreed. END flashback. Since then, 4 years have passed. Naruto, without chakra, the fox was at the level of a chunin, knew 2 elements and several techniques, including Shadow Clone Technique, Air Bullets, Fiery Phoenix Flowers, Cutting Wind, and the basics, like Substitution. Taijutsu was at the genin level. It was all a secret, though Nara didn't hide it too much. She also did not like theory, but Fox made me learn it. Now she knew the whole course of the academy. The hair with the poison chakra training, as well as the eyes, began to turn red. And the character, under the pressure of the fox, has changed a lot. And now Naruko is running across the rooftops to the academy, where everyone has already gathered. She got there a minute before the call. She did not listen to Irika, but simply slept on the desk, because yesterday she was very tired with taijutsu training. On some reflexes, she got up from the desk and intercepted the teacher's raised hand with the magazine, and squeezed it so that the magazine fell out of her hand. There was deathly silence. Uzumaki, you can't sleep in class. But the fact that? I know everything, ask any question. Tell the story of the Hokage, demanded a pleased Irika, clearly thinking she was screwing up. There was a reason for this. Naruto still caused a lot of trouble. But not for the fact that it would be noticed, but out of harm. But Uzumaki told, to Kurama's wild laughter at her comments, about the actions of the Hokage. Until the end of the day, no one touched her, after which she left to train, putting up a barrier from the ANBU, who followed her on her heels. After training, she went into the ramen shop, and after eating, she crawled home. Throughout her studies at the academy, Naruko never ceased to amaze and frighten both teachers and students. She constantly slept in the lessons, some even skipped, did not write down anything in a notebook, and did not even try to listen. But Uzumaki wrote all the tests perfectly well, and in taijutsu and kunai throwing she was the best in the class. Needless to say, she hid her powers from everyone except the Hokage, and, at the moment, could defeat an average jonin? She could have become an excellent student if she behaved normally, but that's boring. Be sure to pour oil on the stairs, and hang and mask a bucket of paint on the door. It was thanks to her that the academy teachers became more attentive, and the Hokage regarded this as a benefit. He came up with a great secret punishment for the delinquent ANBU. By the way, he only knew that she uses fox chakra, and skillfully controls it. He knows nothing about friendship. And the punishment was this: the third gave Naruko 2 scrolls, and she hid all over Konoha, periodically running across to new places. The ANBU needed to find and select the scrolls, and that wasn't easy to do. Naruko wants to have fun, wants blood. In addition to her offenders, she can also kill inattentive ANBU. With these hide and seek, the number of failed missions began to decrease sharply, and the ANBU began to train harder. And which of them are ANBU, if they were defeated by a 10-year-old girl? Let Jinchuriki, but still. By the way, she is still at the academy, but only at her own request, explaining that if she enters the ANBU at the age of 13, it will be somehow strange. At the academy, only Sasuke was Naruko's equal, without the fox's chakra of course, and more or less there was Hinata. She is the only one who looked at Naruko not so much with hatred as with fear. However, this fear disappeared after she began to communicate with the vessel. Naruko began training with Hinata when the clan let her go. Hayashi was against it, but when he saw his daughter's progress, he agreed. Sasuke was also followed by all the girls, or stupid chickens, as Naruko called them. To which Hina only nodded in agreement. From Kurama Uzumaki, along with the character, the habit of sleeping a lot was passed on, and she could fall asleep anywhere. But she is no match for Shikamaru. Speaking of Sasuke, he nevertheless persuaded Itachi to train, which is why he was the equal of Naruko, whom he secretly feared and was horrified by her bloodthirstiness. They had a mutual hatred with Naruko, but he understood that a great friendship would grow out of this hatred. Yes, she is like a sister to him. Harmful, quick-tempered and very unpredictable sister, with whom he constantly competes and who miraculously did not kill him. But back to distribution. Crap. Damn ramen. Although what am I talking about? Ramen is sacred. Are you thinking about anything other than ramen? Kurama mockingly asked the red-haired girl who slipped on a pack of ramen and was now lying in the hallway. Yes. For example, how to get up from this damned floor, which I'm about to smash, to hell with it. Go to the academy already, and just try to wake me up before evening for no reason. Okay. Naruko got up and ran to the distribution, which was 5 minutes away. As she raced across the rooftops, she listened to the birds that flew over the sleepy Konoha. In general, Naruko is a strange person. Some might say that she has two personalities. The first is a naive sweet girl who loves children, ramen, books and animals. And the second is a ruthless killer who wants blood, ramen and sleep. Well, you must admit, you can't go anywhere without ramen. Maybe they are right. When the first personality wakes up in Naruko, the eyes become bright, full of kindness and curiosity. You can see this Naruko, but not very often. And when she gets angry, her eyes become filled with blood and hatred, her hair is divided into 9 parts, just like the bloody habanera. And you can feel CI from a kilometer away. Pushing open the door with her foot, she entered the classroom, to which Iruka only raised his eyes to the sky in pain. More specifically, the ceiling. As soon as she sat down next to Hinata and Kiba, the bell rang. I did it, the Uzumaki breathed. Hey Naruko-chan, Hinata greeted with a friendly smile. Kiba sighed at the newcomer with a slight fear and simply nodded. Great. So, kids. Today you will be divided into teams and become real shinobi. Now there will be no academy teachers next to you, and each team will have its own sensei. You will. Habanero too did not listen further, but dozed, listening only to the commands. Team 7, Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha, she squealed. Turning her head, Uzumaki saw that she was showing Ino's tongue. And Naruko Uzumaki. 3 moans filled the classroom. Sakura, because in Naruko she sees a rival, and in general she is afraid of her. And why Sasuke and Naruko herself are moaning is easy to guess. But, Iruka-sensei. That's bullshit. Sasuke and I can't be on the same team. This is mistake. Naru screamed. Yes, Iruka-sensei. Sakura immediately supported her, thinking that she could get rid of the 9 tails in the team. We are the best in the class, is it possible to put it like that? can I be on another team?" Sasuke exclaimed. And the last phrase, he shouted along with Naruko. The class was shocked only because Sasuke showed emotions, and it's better not to even think about the distribution. "I'm sorry, Naruko, Sasuke, but that's what the Hokage decided. Your sensei, Hatake Kakashi. Wait for him here, he should come after the end." Naruko lay down on her desk and almost rushed to kill the neighing fox, who could not believe the luck of his Jinchuriki. Spitting on him, Uzumaki fell asleep. When she woke up, she looked at her watch and saw that she had slept for 2 hours. Looking around, she was surprised to see a very angry Sasuke and Sakura, who was trying to roll up to him. "Is there no sensei yet?" she asked in a slightly sleepy voice. Judging by the mocking Sasuke, she did not look very good. Turning to the window, she saw that her hair was slightly tangled, and on her cheek, next to the scar that remained from that day, a hand mark. After rubbing her eyes and combing her hair with her hands, she looked at Sasuke normally. "You're deaf, aren't you?" "He's gone, we've been sitting here for 2 hours, right, Sasuke-kun? And anyway, demon, don't talk to Sasuke-kun like that." Sakura squealed. Naruko gave her such a look that she immediately shut up and began to look at the board. "Come, I'll show him." Naru hissed as he launched his Ki into the air. Sakura shrank back into her chair in fear, and Sasuke just grimaced. "Stop, Uzumaki." She wanted to start arguing, but then the door opened and a young man with white hair and a mask entered. The bandage covered his left eye. Naruko immediately threw him back, and jumped up shouted. "You are 2 hours late, holy ramen. Where have you been?" "I got lost on the road of life," he answered, rising from the floor. "Let's go to the roof." With these words, he disappeared into the white haze. "Damn, shadow clone," Naruko hissed displeasedly, and climbing out the window, she walked along the wall. The Uchiha sighed and followed her. Sakura stood in a stupor, looking at it with huge eyes. Waking up, she ran up the stairs. Well, at least I had the brains not to try," Naru chuckled. On the roof, Kakashi was already waiting, leaning against the railing. "Tell us about yourself." "Sensei, give us an example," Sakura asked. Okay. My name is Hatake Kakashi. I won't tell you my dream, but my hobbies are not interesting." He didn't say anything but his name. Sakura whispered rather loudly. "Your turn." He looked at the girl. "My name is Sakura Haruno. My dream. My hobbies." While saying this, she constantly looked at Sasuke and blushed. It looked so funny that Naruto laughed. "Shut up, demon. Just calling me that all the time won't change anything. By the way, I have a name for especially smart ones." "And what?" Kakashi intervened. "The name is Naruko Uzumaki. The dream is to become the strongest medic. I love ramen, kids, sleeping, killing, listening to birds, exercising and my friend Kurama. I don't like accusations for no reason." "Who is Kurama?" Kakashi asked. "You know him, that's all I can tell you." Okay, now you." Sasuke Uchiha. "I love training, I do not like arrogant girls. The dream is to surpass the brother." I have a command to go nuts," flashed through Kakashi's head. Aloud, he said, "Tomorrow at 6 a.m. at the 7th training ground. I advise you not to have breakfast," and disappeared. "Yeah, right now." "So, I'll have breakfast and it's very heavy. That's it for now." Naruto went home. Sasuke was quickly exhausted, Sakura didn't even have time to blink. Then she trudged home. Guessing that being late for assignment was not accidental, Naruko decided to sleep some more. When she woke up, she found that it was already 8 a.m. After washing up, the girl had breakfast with freshly brewed ramen and galloped to the training ground. She came somewhere at 9:30 and found very angry Sasuke and Sakura there. The latter wanted to start to resent, as Sasuke interrupted her. "Why are we late? You could guess the punctuality of our sensei and come back later." As did a very wise man. "And who?" the red one asked Haruno indignantly. "P.F. I, of course." Naruko lay down under a tree. "Bold, isn't it?" "No, not rude. This is according to Narakovsky. But not brazenly." "No. What nonsense." She fell asleep. Sasuke pushed her through an hour later. They listened to the essence of the test and jumped into the bushes. Kakashi sighed and pulled out his book, figuring that Naruko wasn't around. How wrong he was. Jumping out abruptly, the Uzumaki rushed straight at him, pulling out a kunai. Twisting 3 of them on her fingers, she launched them one by one straight at Kakashi. He only leaned slightly to the right, moving away from the first. After down, moving away from the second. And the third one he caught. And that was his mistake. Hatake noticed the explosive seal on the handle too late, which reacted instantly. An explosion, and the place where the ninja used to stand is completely covered in smoke. "Well, no, kids. You can't fool me like that," the ninja grinned, jumping into the air. However, Naruko rushed past him as well. "Clone?" the ninja thought in shock. "Okay, she missed anyway, stop. Where's my book?" Kakashi looked around in a panic. He spotted a girl standing near a tree and landed next to her. However, it was too late. The book was already on fire, smoking a little. Kakashi fell to his knees screaming, looking at the hot remains of the masterpiece. Just then, Sakura rushed past, grabbing the bells. The trio chuckled. "Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke. You didn't pass. There are only 2 bells, and teams of 3 people." Kakashi exclaimed with a slightly breaking goal, angrily slamming his hand on the ground. "What's the difference?" Jinchuriki asked in bewilderment. "A second and a katana in her hand. Another second and one of the bells is cut in half." Taking it, Naruko handed Kakashi one half and said, "Now there are 4 of them. Just for you, Kakashi-sensei." And laughed. And then, she herself did not notice how she was tied to a pole. "Hey, for what?" "For the book," the shinobi snapped, but he did not throw away the bell, but put it in his bag. "Sasuke, I heard that you joined the team?" Fugaku asked coldly as he looked at his son. In the eyes sometimes flashed sparks of pride and joy, which not everyone was able to notice. And Sasuke was just one of those that could not do it. "Yes," trying to imitate his father, he answered. The older Uchiha smiled slightly and said, bowing his head, "Well, you've done well." A smile, though so short, but so desirable, lifted Sasuke's mood to the limit. Joyfully jumping up, Sasuke nodded and rushed to the exit. Recollecting himself, he turned and bowed, and then all so quickly ran away. Children," father shook his head and returned to work with a sigh. It was a warm evening. The sun crept slowly and lazily across the blue sky. In the Hokage's office stood a 13-year-old girl with red hair. "Nice photo, Naruko," a third complimented her. "Yeah, can you go faster?" she asked impatiently. "Here," he wanted to say, but then a boy, about 8 years old, burst into the door. He was wearing a long blue scarf, and his hair, like a pineapple, looked out of his hat. He shouted, "I'll win you, old man. I'll win and become the new Hokage." And, stumbling over a scarf, fell. "Who else are you?" he challenged the grinning Naruko. The third only sighed, guessing what would happen next. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto." "And who are you?" And in general, talk normally with adults, otherwise. But the fact that? What will you do to me? On this Uzumaki jumped up to him and lifted him by the scruff of the neck, but he blurted out, I am Sarutobi Konohamaru, the grandson of the third Hokage. Naruto let go of the contented boy with a smile. And then she shot him in the jaw. I don't care who you are. The rules of decency must be observed. She yelled. Oh, Naruko. But who would say, the Hokage remarked with a grin. She wanted to start arguing, but she was interrupted by a scream. Demon! Don't you dare hit the venerable grandson of the Hokage. Naru glared at him angrily, sending her ki into the air. Hair began to habitually be divided into 9 parts. Tired of living? Hissed Vessel. Cool. Can you train me? Please, boss. Boss? Well, okay, but don't expect concessions. Tomorrow at 6 a.m., at the 9th training ground, the boss immediately calmed down. Eat. Stop, wait. I'm the honorable grandson of the Hokage's special teacher. Yes, I'll knock you out with one technique. Okay, try. Harem technique. The third, already familiar with this technique, closed his eyes, carefully holding back his laughter. Naruto made him very happy. Pooh! Before the man stood a girl of 13, with long yellow hair and blue eyes. Some places on her body were covered with clouds, she murmured. Sir, I'll still train Konohamaru. The poor, special teacher, bled from his nose with such force that he flew off against the wall. Naruko, clear the technique, the Hokage demanded. Already, she replied. So what, special teacher? Nifiga, you are not special. Ramen fights better than you, although he is food. The best in the world, the most delicious. But the food? By the way, Konohamaru, I do not advise becoming Hokage. Why? The third one also listened. After all, before Naruko really wanted to become one, and now she thinks only about the doctor. Look how many papers the old man has on his desk. It all needs to be written and rewritten. It is better to become stronger than the Hokage, and never settle for this post. And she's right, damn it, the third thought with some regret. Since then, Naruko has been training Konohamaru. Shadow clone technique. Goose cloning technique. I'll pull out all the feathers for you, and strangle with a bow. How dare you, human spawn, insult me? Great and unique condor. Now I'll show you what it means to be the head of an ostrich clan. Talk less, work more. Rasengan. What are you doing? This circus was watched by 3 shinobi sitting under a stone wall. The oldest of them had a mask, and a bandage covered his left eye. A guy with dark hair and onyx eyes, which now showed sparks of amusement, was sitting not far from him, holding back a mask of indifference. The girl with pink hair was looking askance at the guy, but inside she didn't know what to do, to rejoice or cry. After all, the demon cannot defeat the goose, but the way he looked at her with merriment made me think. Do you know why Naruko couldn't defeat this cunning ostrich? She just decided not to use the fox chakra so often. Try. And this legged leg, as the aforementioned one called it, even Kakashi could hardly have defeated. Naruko and Condor had a mutual dislike, and 3 intelligent shinobi did not interfere with them. Turd noticed that it was getting late and thought about spending the night in Suna. What are they doing in Suna? Read on. Flashback. A sleepy breeze gently stroked the leaves, flew along the road, sweeping away the dust. Darkness slowly crawled away into its sleepy realm, giving freedom of action to the morning. Awakened shinobi were already in a hurry on a mission, some on the road, and some on the roofs. After all, 6 in the morning is only for civilians, but for ninjas, it's time. Knowing her sensei, Naruko wanted to sleep some more but couldn't sleep. She could ramen swear that something bad would happen today. Therefore, the mood of the Jinchuriki was spoiled in the morning, and it was also complemented by the fact that she had screwed up in the bathroom. And when she complained to the fox, he waved it off and continued to sleep, muttering something like, "Not my problem." After reading the scrolls of techniques, she saw that it was already 7. So, Kakashi-sensei is usually 2 hours late. I can walk for another hour. But where? Oh, something will happen today. And deciding to still go to the Hokage's residence, she changed clothes, bought ice cream from a frightened saleswoman, and slowly stomped. When Naruko reached the residence, it was 7:30. Well, she couldn't walk slowly. How much I tried, it was worth thinking about how the step immediately accelerated. Judging by the faces of the team, there was no sensei. Sakura somewhere took the courage to yell at the Uzumaki, and at the most inopportune time. And now Naruko was trying to calm down so as not to kill her teammate. She lowered her head, and Sakura couldn't see the reddened eyes and bulging pupils. But noticed Sasuke, and hastily began to translate the topic. "Are you messing with sensei? How can you be so late? And generally speaking." "Sakura, calm down," that Uchiha's calm tone. Hirono turned around slightly surprised, and following Sasuke's gaze towards Naruko, she shuddered as she instinctively took a step back. Fluff. "Sorry for the delay, I was transferring the old woman across the road." "Did you mean old ladies?" Judging by the time, there were about 300 of them, Sasuke asked mockingly. Kakashi ignored such a brazen statement and simply walked into the residence, noting to himself that the Uzumaki was clearly out of sorts. "Team number 7, you have to catch an ostrich named Condor. According to our information, he is in the Suna area. First the missing cats. Then the missing dogs, now the ostrich. Are you seriously?" Naruto started fuming. "Calm down, Naruko. There will be a Chunin exam in the village soon, and we are not giving out big missions. And if you become a Chunin, you will be able to complete missions of rank B and above. Here are the passes to Suna. Start now. Come on." In 20 minutes, the whole team, including Turd, was at the gate. "Kakashi-sensei, I'll use the summon if you don't mind." "Yes." Seals, and about the team are 4 foxes, as tall as a man. "Aiko, Kokoro, Koharu, Katsu, get us to Suna, please. Eat." Kakashi was surprised that Naruko had a call that they were foxes, although this is not surprising. Sakura stood in a stupor, and Sasuke looked at the Uzumaki with some envy. Itachi talked about the summoning, and said that it is quite difficult to get it. END flashback. Well, there is no point in describing it further. They were close to the village now, and Kakashi had created a stone wall to create some shade. Naruko fought this ostrich, which turned out to be a talking and technologist. Even Chidori. And so, Naruko began to win. With clones and taijutsu, she drove the ostrich into a trap, in the form of a sealing scroll. Accidentally stepping on it, Condor with a slight poof disappeared. Naru smiled triumphantly, and then, staggering, sank to the ground, breathing heavily. The Jonin stood up and approached the girl, holding out water. She nodded and began to sip her drink, wiping her sweat along the way. Sasuke and Sakura also stood behind Kakashi, approaching the battlefield. Well done, Naruko. Can you pull it out of the scroll later?" The gray-haired man asked, thinking, "I'll have to report to the Hokage that we have a Fuinjutsu master." "Yes," was the laconic answer. At that moment, Naru's eyes fell on the 3 teenagers. One of them had red hair with piercing turquoise eyes. Their eyes met, and almost simultaneously growling voices sounded in their heads, "Shikaku. Kurama." Along with these voices came a wave of hostility towards each other. Looking away, they had almost indistinguishable thoughts, "I don't like him, her. The rest did not notice it. Hey demon, can you get up? Sakura asked, wincing. Naruko already habitually removed the word demon from her hearing and nodded dryly. The mood that had risen from the battle was immediately spoiled by the pink-haired beast. She stood up, or rather, tried, because her legs gave way, and she fell. Would. If Sasuke hadn't caught her. Sure. The voice was slightly mocking, but behind it was a concern that barely noticeable flickered in the eyes. Yes, she tried again, gritting her teeth, leaning over for the scroll. Kurama began to heal his unfortunate Jinchuriki. Let's go back or. On foxes, everything is short and clear. In 5 hours they were in Konoha. The sun crawled across the sky and sometimes, as if embarrassed, was covered by fluffy clouds. A light breeze, as if playing, drove the clouds further along with the leaves of the trees. Passers-by rejoiced at the excellent weather, hurrying somewhere. It would seem idle, but not for everyone. Yes, you calm down. Tired of running? Let go of my ear, you brat. The nine-tailed fox was indignant, shaking his head. Naruko was sitting on it, nervously wrinkling the fox's ear. Finally, he succeeded, and the girl flew down, though grouped, and landing on the pillow. Sorry, I just don't know what to do. The mood seems to be good, but something will happen today. Well, I say, Databayo. Kyubi realized from the guilty light red eyes that she really was in a very good mood. Yes, and he understood Naruko, as if he had an all stuck in one place. Go for a walk, and this one too. Like him. You'll train Kanemaru, otherwise you're already tired of it. First of all, not Kanemaru, but Konohamaru, Databayo. And secondly, thanks for the advice. Listen, can Uchiha and Haruno call? Are you crazy, Uzumaki? Kurama asked in shock, suspecting a trick. No, I just want to see their shocked faces, she replied with a grin. Ah, well then, okay. Only now, if you are an Uchiha, at this moment he grimaced. You persuade, then how is Haruno? She is afraid of you like a cat of water. Well, what is Sasuke there for? Oh, yes. Something stupid, I didn't get enough sleep because of someone. He looked at the guilty face intently. Well, I'm sorry. That's it, then I'll go and take Konohamaru with me. Yeah, go ahead already. Stupid hairball. I heard a scream in my subconscious, but the girl was no longer there. The fox only snorted at this, deciding that he, the great fox, might not answer. Meanwhile, Naruto got out of bed. After completing her morning routine and brewing the ramen, she looked around the house. Seeing what a scratch, and looking at the time, 5 in the morning, she decided to do something that she had never done before of her own free will. Get out. As a result, the ramen got cold, but the apartment shone. Refurbishing the barriers at the entrance, and to the muttering of a framed fox that had just woken up, she began to eat. After eating, she found that it was already 7 a.m. After going to Tuchi-san's and buying ramen there, bringing it home, she went to get Konohamaru. Bubba. Konohamaru, wake up. Go for a walk. The Uzumaki called, knocking on wood. You, came a voice from behind the door, which opened. Konohamaru was chewing on something, but he immediately came out ready. Surprised to note that Naruko is kind today. Boss, are you in a good mood today? Yeah, the weather probably does. I like the night more than the day, but today is so good. Cool. That's why you smile like that, right? Nah, just imagine the face of Uchiha and Haruno. These are those two morons from my team, remember, did you catch a glimpse of them? When I show up to them and call them for a walk. Konohamaru froze, imagining such a scene, and then two loud laughter tore apart the street. Well, that's what I'm talking about. Let's go soon. Tuck tuck. Footsteps are heard and the door opens, revealing a woman with long black hair and onyx eyes. At first, both females were looking at each other, with the Uchiha looking without hatred, but with a measure of interest, which greatly surprised Naruko. The Uzumaki looked at Sasuke's mother. Well, like a mother, she had not seen her before. "Hello, is Sasuke home?" Naru asked with naive eyes and the sweetest voice. In the eyes of Mikoto-san, Sasuke once dropped the names of his parents and brother. Understanding appeared. Her gaze changed to appraising. "They took you for a bride," said the fox, showing his fangs. "Yeah, right now." "Don't wait." With the same smirk inside, but without changing outside, the answer followed. "Yes, wait a second." Turning back, she called softly. "Sasuke, they came to you." A few seconds later, the aforementioned Uchiha appeared. There was a little surprise in his eyes. More precisely, for everyone an emotionless face, but Naruko felt people well. And when he saw who came to him, he was simply dumbfounded. "Naruko?" he asked incredulously. "No, damn it, a tomato on legs." Completely forgetting about Mikoto, she quipped. It has already become a habit. Already awakened Sasuke did not remain in debt. "What do you want?" "Let's go for a walk." "Walk? When did you call me for a walk?" "What's the catch?" "Yes, I'm in a good mood, I might not even kill you." "Look how nice the weather is, Dadabayo," and without Sasuke-kun Haruno, he grimaced, "definitely won't go anywhere with Demon." Sasuke looked at the Uzumaki suspiciously, but nodded anyway. "Now, I'll just change clothes," he flew away. "Well, yes, otherwise without makeup," she answered with a chuckle, under the wild neighing of the fox. Mikoto sighed quietly, realizing that this couple would definitely not have a relationship. Bang bang bang. "Haruno, come out already. Didn't you suffocate in the powder there?" Banging on the door loudly indignant Naruko. Sakura, whom they had been waiting for half an hour, as soon as she saw Sasuke, immediately ran to make up and dress. By the way, he was in full solidarity with Naruko, although he did not express it so vehemently. What if Uzumaki also takes so long to get dressed? We didn't expect her, these were the thoughts in the head of the Uchiha. "Boss, don't girls take so long to get dressed? Are you dressing fast?" Konohamaru asked. And Itachi's younger brother was only once again surprised that Konohamaru was not afraid to ask about such a Naruko. But she, to his surprise, answered calmly, although without being distracted from beating the door, "But this is so, trifles. I don't know, but I get dressed in 3 minutes. Haruno. Open. I count to 3 and kick the door." Immediately heard footsteps, and the door opened, revealing in front of him a made-up, and even too much, Sakura. Uzumaki she did not even notice, immediately approaching Sasuke. Naruko chuckled, she felt better. The sun was about to set, and our trio and Konohamaru were walking the streets. Sasuke honestly tolerated Sakura's harassment, but after half an hour, Uzumaki began to feel eyes on them. Without stopping, she caught Sasuke's pleading gaze with her extreme vision. At first, this made her laugh a little, but when Haruno saw their intersecting glances, the small brain decided that it should get both of them. "Demon, why are you looking at Sasuke-kun like that? It's mine, you can't have it. He won't even look at someone like you, etc., etc." Now Sasuke was jubilant. Konohamaru couldn't take it at all and said, "And let's who will be the first to reach Ichiraku?" "Come on," Sasuke and Naruto quickly agreed. Uchiha bent down to the ground and, taking a stone, tossed it. As soon as the stone fell, everyone took off. Konohamaru slipped and turned a corner. After running a couple more meters, team number 7 stopped. "Hey, adults should be respected, not crashed." "Sorry, I didn't see you." "Now I'll forgive, it won't seem enough. Heard from around the corner. Quickly wrapping Naruko, she saw this picture. Some guy her age with garbage behind his back is standing and holding her subordinate by the scarf, preparing to hit. Behind him stands a girl with pigtails and a huge Tessen fan. Konohamaru. Apparently training with me didn't teach you anything. Maybe you shouldn't continue? The vessel asked, bowing its head and smiling. And inside, anger was already boiling towards this guy with half-muzzle makeup. How dare he touch Sarutobi? Who else are you? He asked. Konohamaru, as if waking up, began to get out, but that guy was more dexterous. Having tied him with a scarf, he began to pull. Then a stone flew into his hand with the words, "Let him go." Well, yes, Sasuke can't do without showing off. Flashed through my mind. The hand of this completely numb man opened and Konohamaru fell out. What are you doing? Stop it, Kankuro, came a calm voice. Naruko raised her head slightly to see that red-haired boy from Suna up in the tree. Gigi Gaara? For some reason, becoming stutter, asked the girl and Kankuro. Okay, she quickly agreed with the fan. What are you doing here? You are not from our village, are you? Sakura plucked up her courage, no one knows where. Kankuro showed a pass to the village. Are you taking the Chunin exam? Sasuke, do you think that if I kill one member of the team, we will be expelled? The Jinchuriki hissed, as the anger at parkour, or whatever it was, didn't go away. The hair habitually divided into 9 parts, and in the air, although weakly, the Kyubi chakra was felt. Gaara's indifferent gaze changed and began to look at Naruko with interest. Uzumaki, calm down, Sasuke attempted, knowing full well that it was unlikely that anything would come of it. Can you give me one reason to do it? Well, they are from another village. And so what? What difference does it make to me? Like what? Scrape the remains of the brains from the walls of your skull, and think. They are from another village, and if you attack them, the village has the right to declare war. Literally shouted at the red-haired Sasuke. Temari and Kankuro were silently freaking out at Sasuke's boldness, who was yelling at the monster she looked like. Naruko shifted her gaze to the Uchiha, and the air smelled of a fight. Blood and flesh, blood and flesh. We'll see them now. Gaara said quietly. Few people knew, but he was very fond of reading, as well as composing poems. But he was not allowed to finish this one, because Naruko interrupted him with the phrase. Because Sasuke is our cute moron. And now we'll eat it. Shikaku picked up the Jinchuriki. Now his family was just knocked out, he also not only said, but said quite a lot. At this point, their entire, friendly, atmosphere was interrupted by Konohamaru's shout. Boss, ramen is in danger. Uzumaki quickly turned around and saw that Tuchi-san slipped and now about 20 bowls of ramen are falling. Naruko could not afford to fall, and created clones. One of them picked up the cook, while the others began to catch the ramen. In general, the whole ramen was caught in 5 seconds. Ugh, thank you Naruto. What would I do without you? Tuchi breathed out. Today 50% discount for you and your friends. Hooray! Konohamaru and all of you, are you going? Naru smiled brightly. The anger disappeared, the lights of kindness and fun shone in the eyes. Without waiting for an answer, Naruko simply created several clones that grabbed Sasuke, Sakura, Temari and Kankuro, literally dragging them along. The original appeared behind Gaara's back. She grabbed his hand and dragged the dumbfounded guy to the others. He looked at their hands. Why did the sand let her touch me? Does she want to harm me? Why isn't she afraid of me? These are the thoughts spinning in his head. Naruko. Stop dragging me, I know how to walk. Sasuke was outraged. Actually, I don't eat ramen. And you asked the Sonovites if they wanted to? Who am I talking to? Shut up, you hysterical. Usually you are silent, that you are now shouting, she answered, continuing to drag him forward with the persistence of a ram. They almost reached Ichiraku when Itachi and Shisui walked by. Sasuke was about to call out to them when the Uzumaki exclaimed, "Voro," and broke off, remembering that they were strangers. Flash black. Raven, Lynx, are you sure? The Hokage asked. Yes. They answered. The Hokage sighed, and saying, "Okay, take off your masks, you won't need them," he folded the seals. Itachi and Shisui removed their masks and stared intensely into space. It seemed that nothing happened. However, a minute later, the door kicked open, revealing a 10-year-old girl with red hair behind her. "Old man, who shall we turn into a meatloaf with gravy in the form of a melted mask?" Naruto asked with a small smile. While the Uchihas looked at the newcomer in surprise, a third said, "Firstly, I asked you not to open the door with your feet. Secondly, I'm not an old man, not an old man, not an old man. I am the third Hokage. Understood?" "Yes, old man." "So who?" He just put his hand to his face and sighed. "This is Raven, Itachi, and Lynx, Shisui. They wanted to test you, you can start," and threw 2 scrolls to her. She caught them and, laughing, disappeared in a puff of white smoke. "Clone?" Shisui exclaimed. "Right, let's get started." "Ha ha ha, cool. I haven't had this much fun in a long time." Catch, laughing, threw the scrolls into the hands of Uchiha Naruko. All 3 were breathing heavily, but they were content. "Why didn't Shisui or Itachi just put her in a genjutsu, you ask? She's a complete zero. But you forgot about Kurama, who pulled it out every time." So the battle turned out to be interesting, and far from simple. End flash black. Since then, Naruko and the Uchiha have been training together, and in general they have become friends. Few knew the truth about their friendship, but not the essence. Sasuke began to peer suspiciously at the clone, thinking, "Here you are." He suspected that Naruko knew a lot more than he let on. But even then she wriggled out, and wriggled out well, shouted, "Crow! Look, Crow! Let's roast it." Realizing with horror that she repeated the last phrase after the neighing fox. Actually, she wanted to laugh too, at Itachi, who rolled his eyes slightly, with Shisui holding back a laugh, yes, and with a phrase. The only thing that got in the way was the awesome expressions on the faces of the Sonovites. And even more so Gaara, who simply no longer knows what to expect from the Uzumaki. Well, that is. Oh, forget it. Kurama. I'll kill you, shaggy rug. Hot ramen with hot ramen, so that he suffers. Ha ha ha. Oh, I can't, well, I have Jinchuriki. You got stuck. Ha ha ha. For the first time, I'm glad I got sealed huh. Oh, I can't, phew. Listen, this one, like him. Gaara looks at you like an alien. His campaign was not held by the hand in life, and indeed, to behave so impudently with Shikaku's Jinchuriki. What? Your ramen. Ugh, you have already infected with your ramen. Kurama, why didn't you tell me? Your call is very important to us. Hold on. Don't build. Connection to the server was lost, please try again later. All this time, all the clones of Naruko froze, drilling the ground with a blank look. Uzumaki could control herself, but now she was angry, and she simply lost sight of it. Gaara was surprised to recognize himself as he dived into the subconscious. That girl's Jinchuriki Kyubi. How I hate him. Let him die. Shikaku? No, Madara is wearing a skirt. I am me. Why did you decide to talk to me? Have you always encouraged me to kill? Yes, I'm in shock, but I'm tired. No, watching you kill people is certainly not bad. But you kill them. I want to do something too. Do you know how boring it is to sit here? You totally screwed me up. Die, you're annoying. People. That's it, I'm going to sleep. Now two teenagers were standing with huge eyes, just in shock. Sasuke waved his hand in front of Naruko's eyes while calling out several times. Seeing no reaction, he did the same before Sabakano's eyes with some apprehension. His family members looked at the Uchiha like he was an idiot. There was no reaction. Then Sakura, after a little thought, carefully approached the Uzumaki and said loudly, "Look, free ramen." Author's note, too much ramen, don't you think? After a few seconds, they deigned to come to their senses. Naruko looked at him and said uncertainly, "Jinchuriki?" He nodded slightly, looking at the girl with concern. "Well, brother, or what?" The Uzumaki scratched her head in embarrassment, burying her hand in her hair. With this phrase, Naruko stabbed everyone in the jaw in earshot. And Gaara got it. "What kind of creature are you anyway?" Here the vessel suffered and she, laughing, grabbed her stomach. Gaara smiled slightly uncertainly, and Konohamaru was already lying in the sand. Temari and Kenkuro slowly crawled down the fence. Brother said. "Temari, sis, can you borrow a fan? Something is wrong with me." "Very fucking funny." "Hey! With red hair, am I disturbing your sleep?" Came a loud, angry voice next to the girl's ear. She, startled, blew herself up, sleepily opening her eyes and staring at the man who woke her up impudently. The man was of impressive growth, the aura was burning with the desire to kill the impudent girl. On his head there was something like a scarf, with an iron plate and the sign of Konoha, and his face was scarred. Surprised, Naruko tried to remember who this muddy uncle was and where she was at all. A second later it dawned on her, she was in the first part of the exam. Listening to the sensations, she realized that the whole audience was now looking at her, and the fox was clearly restraining himself so as not to laugh. Marino Ibiki literally burned the girl with his eyes, and anyone else in her place would have run away long ago if they hadn't flown out. But it's Naruto. She once greatly angered the fox. He let out so much ki that Naruko then, out of fear, almost climbed onto the pipes in her subconscious. And it seemed like this, intestine. Flash black. A warm breeze gently glides across the deserted Konoha, brushing the leaves of the trees and raising light dust. The sun had already crawled below the horizon, and the moon was hastily crawling across the sky. However, it was not completely dark yet, and the street was clearly visible. The wind also touched the loose hair of a 9-year-old girl who was walking around with a blank look. Red hair reached to the end of the back, black leggings and a simple red t-shirt with a whirlpool sign. Naruko was talking to the fox, walking rather on the machine, not really following the road. "That's it, I'm happy with you today. Cool, you poured paint on Irika." "Yeah, pink too. I'm going to sleep, just try to wake me up." The girl's gaze became meaningful, and she turned her head around. Seeing a nearby landfill with a forest, she decided to take a walk there, pick mushrooms. Entering the forest, Uzumaki felt familiar chakra. Walking in that direction, Naruko hid behind a tree. Sasuke was sleeping in a small clearing in the middle of the kunai. "Found a place," she muttered and walked over to him. Sasuke was fast asleep and didn't want to wake him up. Deciding to take another look at the clearing, Naruko spotted multiple targets, one on a tree, one on the ground, another on a rock, and a third on another tree. There were 7 of them in total, and each had a kunai stuck in the middle. Involuntarily admiring, Uzumaki's gaze accidentally fell behind a stone. There was an 8 target, and next to it lay about 10 kunai. Exactly, not a single one hit the bullseye. Walking up to Sasuke, Naruko noticed a lot of scratches and bruises. Yes, and he breathed unevenly, although he slept. I trained for a long time, I guess. But that's not possible. Naruko placed her hand on the Uchiha's forehead and used a sleeping honey jutsu. He began to breathe more evenly, but nothing changed. And it shouldn't, he was already asleep. Having healed the scratches, Naruko put one of the Uchiha's hands on her shoulder and dragged her through the secret passages, or rather through the deserted streets. After dragging it to the Uchiha quarter, Naruko put it close, and after a little thought, she wrote a note. When you throw a kunai at a stone, try to knock it down with 2, not 1. At first it will be easier with 2. Then she ran home and went to bed, because Sasuke is not a feather for you. But she had no idea that another Uchiha was watching this. Itachi, his older brother. Taking his younger brother in his arms and hearing a quiet surprised "Ni-san," he went home. How dare you? My Jinchuriki. I cannot believe it. Kyubi growled at his subconscious. Naruko sat in the corner, curled up into a ball and her head down. Tears flowed on their own, she could not hold them back. The power of the fox's anger was so great that Naruko was pressed against this wall. Uzumaki even trained with Kurama, but she is a child, and when they release Ki on you, like on Madara. Whoa, couldn't I have just left it? She exclaimed in a trembling voice, without raising her head. Kyubi hasn't seen her cry yet. Yes, I could not. You should kill the red-eyed baby. Why? Why? Stereotypes? Do you want me to do to Sasuke the way they did to me? I'm a Jinchuriki, a demon. I need to be hated, killed. Sasuke from the Uchiha clan, from the clan of traitors, from the clan that organized the attack on Konoha. And it doesn't matter that then they themselves lost a lot of people defending the village, they organized it, coulda. The Uzumaki raised her head. The fox immediately lost all his fuse, looking at the tear-stained face of the child. Something I went too far, she's still a child. Yes, when did it bother me at all? Why are you so protective of this, clan? Kyubi asked in disgust. I don't know. I just don't want to treat people the way people treated me. Okay, you're forgiven this time, little one. But do you want some advice? After waiting for an attentive look, Kurama said. Never cry in front of someone. You humiliate yourself, show your weaknesses. Learn to restrain yourself, otherwise it will be easy to deceive you. With those words, Uzumaki was thrown out of her subconscious. Whispering, "Thank you," softly, Uzumaki fell asleep. End flash black. That's about since then, Naruko is almost not afraid of Ki. And in the burning look she was frankly do not care. But to be polite, she decided to pretend. Comically shrugging her head into her shoulders and in a trembling voice, she squeaked. Sorry. I won't be going any more, he nodded, but she saw approval in his eyes. Looking around a little, Uzumaki noted with surprise that everyone believed her. Except for Temari, Kankuro, and Gaara and Shikamaru sitting on either side of her. Silently muttering. I didn't even try, she shook her head and set to work on the written assignment, noting the slightly smiling Shika and the surprised Dogno along the way. After reading the tasks, Naruko literally became dumbfounded, you can't say otherwise. Is this for a genin? Seriously? Something isn't clean here. Looking around the room once more, Naruko spotted the rain boy, Sasuke, who was copying the movements of the person sitting in front of him with his Sharingan. And Sakura. But Sakura didn't cheat. Yeah, so the goal is to write off? Well, let's get started. Ku, do you mind? No. Bowing her head slightly so that the bangs fell over her eyes, Naruko gently applied the chakra of the Biju to the organ of vision. The eyes under the bangs lit up slightly, the pupil became completely bestial. Uzumaki's eyesight sharpened, the colors became brighter. Deciding not to stand on ceremony much, Naruko brazenly copied from Gaara. When she finished, she decided to take a nap, but that wasn't the case. Dog No, who had also finished, accidentally looked into the sheet. He immediately noticed that the answers were the same word for word. He didn't really care, but she managed to copy from him. Yes, so that no one else notices. And in general, now he is looking at him with the kindest eyes, clearly holding back laughter. Noticing that Shikaku looked a little accusatory, she said softly. So you can write off, but I can't. Did you notice? It's hard not to notice the flying eye, Uzumaki breathed out, already trembling with laughter. Hey, red-haired couple. You will discuss love affairs after the exam. They wrote, so sit silently, otherwise you will fly out. Their sweet conversation was interrupted by the cry of one of the observers, who immediately regretted it, because two angry looks fell on him, and even Ki. And the embarrassed teenagers turned away from each other, becoming to consider whatever hit. Naruko, remembering her idea, lay down on the desk, ready to fall asleep. However, fate does not appear to be on her side. Turn over the papers and get ready for the 10th question. However, I want to warn you, Ibiki looked around the room with a hard look, from which many almost crawled under their desks. You can refuse the 10th question and come next year. But then the whole team will fly out. When many began to resent, they say, who will choose this option then? He continued. Or you can stay, however, if you fail, you will never be able to participate in the exam again. Decide. Immediately everyone was silent, and hands gradually began to rise. Gaara said quietly, just to no one. But he doesn't know how to scare at all, and he didn't expect at all when the person sitting next to him agreed with a nod. The one above looked back. Seeing that Sasuke and Sakura turned pale, but they were not going to raise their hands, she exhaled calmly. Turning to Shikamaru, she looked suspiciously and said, Hey, Shika, you're not going to raise your hand, are you? He yawned and replied. No, I'm lazy. My brother. Noticing Temari looking at Shikamaru in surprise, Naruto realized that she had overheard their conversation. This is all? Well, you passed. Began the questions, to which Marino answered. Until the window shattered and Enko flew in, shouting. Well, follow me, baby. Wow, 26 teams. Well, nothing, we will cut their number by half. A warm breeze blew softly across the ground, picking up branches and leaves that had come loose from the plants. The sun crept down, revealing a beautiful sight called sunset. People walked slowly through the streets of Konoha, enjoying the magnificent weather. The playground was full of kids screaming, running around, and apparently overdosed on energy. It seemed that absolutely not a single child runs or screams. However, if you think like that, you can be mistaken. A boy with a ponytail of dark hair was lying on a bench on the roof of the academy. He either opened his eyes and looked at the darkening sky, then closed his eyes and plunged into the sweet realm of Morpheus. He looked about 8 years old, but his eyes did not have that slackness, like others. He's Nara. From the clan of laziness and geniuses. Shikamaru simply didn't understand why he was running, screaming, wasting his energy, if he could just lie down, look at the clouds, dream. And it seemed to him that nothing could interrupt this idyll. But there is always this but. A girl his age with red hair landed on the roof. At first, not noticing him, she yawned and reached for the sun. Opening one eye, Shikamaru recognized her as his classmate, Naruko Uzumaki. Shikamaru didn't know why everyone hated her, or rather the adults, and the children just repeated after them. The girl, according to Nara, was kind, if not directly angry, though quick-tempered. And now he confirmed his theory of kindness. Naruko looked at the sun and smiled, waving her arms in a funny way, and trying to stretch herself as high as possible. Accidentally turning around, she noticed a little genius, raised on his elbows and looking at her with interest. A little embarrassed, she noticed that there was no hatred in his gaze, only interest and laziness. Smiling slightly at her guess, Naruko remembered the boy from the class, Shikamaru Nara. Kurama talked a lot about this clan of lazy-ass sages. The Uzumaki didn't try to befriend anyone at the academy because she knew it wouldn't work out. And here they look without hatred. She became interested. "Hey Shikamaru, right?" Uzumaki asked cautiously. He nodded and said in the same tone. "Naruko Uzumaki?" Seeing a similar nod, Shika simply fell back onto the swing bench and closed his eyes. Here he was asked. "Why do you look without hatred?" "Everyone does it." Nara opened his eyes and looked at the Jinchuriki who had come a little closer. "Well, firstly, I don't see the reason, you seem to be a normal girl." "Well, definitely better than those who run after the Uchiha." "And secondly, I'm not a parrot, repeat everything after everyone." "It's logical, if anything, I'm the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox demon." "Jinchuriki means that he is sealed in me," Naruko said with a slight frown, trying to predict, will he stay or leave? The other would have already run away, but this one may well stay. "I see," he replied, closing his eyes again. "Are you afraid of me?" "No, I'm lazy." Laziness was evident in his voice, and even the drawn-out words caused Naruko to burst out laughing. "Aren't you too lazy to breathe?" Nara could make out through laughter. "Laziness," he replied, starting to chuckle. "It is only necessary to breathe, but it is not necessary to be afraid." Having said such a phrase, Shikamaru sat on the bench, bending over and holding his stomach, laughing. "You have a very infectious laugh, haha," he managed. After 15 minutes. "Do you mind if I lie down?" Naruko asked, no longer laughing, but wiping her tears, pointing to the seat next to Shika. "No, lie down." Repeating the action with tears, he nodded, leaning back and closing his eyes. Uzumaki fell beside her, looking at the clouds that had almost disappeared into the darkness. "Do you like to dream?" she asked. "Very. This, perhaps, is one of the few things that I am not too lazy to do," he smiled slightly. Naruko closed her eyes, sinking into her subconscious towards Kurama. I want to tell him." "About what?" "About you." "You are crazy?" The fox stared at her. Naruto thought for a moment and replied. "No, I just trust him." Seeing that the fox wanted to say something, Naruko interrupted. "And what, that you just met?" "I trust him, and I have learned to understand people." "Oh please." She folded her arms across her chest. "You are a great fox. What will happen to you if one little man finds out about you?" "He won't kill you, nothing will kill you at all." "Don't flatter me, Uzumaki," the fox interrupted her, but it was evident that he was pleased. "Okay, but I can't promise that I'll be nice to him." "Cheers, thanks. Only then, for the time being, perhaps, I will sleep," and having disappeared from the subconscious, Naruko fell into a slumber. Waking up, she found the moon hanging high. Midnight? Turning her head, she noticed the same sleeping Naru. "Shika! Wake up, we slept for a long time. Will your parents kill you?" Naru shouted while shaking the sleepy boy. The last sentence made him wake up. Cursing, he said goodbye to the Uzumaki and ran home. After that day, Naruto and Shikamaru became like brother and sister. They often dozed on the roof and talked in the academy. Naruko told about the Kyubi, he was very surprised. But he said it was cool. She didn't say her real name, but called Kyubi. The wind that shakes the trees is difficult to characterize. Behind the fence in the forest of death, he breathed blood. Right there, where the participants were standing, he was affectionate, gentle. Somewhere nearby they were baking rolls, and the smell spread throughout the territories, forcing many to smile blissfully. However, the smiles quickly disappeared when everyone realized that it was in this forest that they would have to spend 5 days. Naruko was still smiling as she looked at the forest. Nostalgia, huh, Ku? Yeah, I remember how you fell out of a tree at 5 years old. Don't remind me. There was someone there, I wanted to hide, but I slipped. Yes, there was a squirrel. Aya, catch it. Hey, you have a very pleased face, just like Shikaku. Only now everyone is looking at you, do not stand like a pillar. Hey, you. What are you smiling at? Anko exclaimed, pointing her kunai at Naruto. Everyone turned to the cheerful Uzumaki, and Sasuke and Sakura turned very pale. Nothing. It will be fun. Naruko replied with a chuckle and reached up with a yawn. Everyone stood in shock. You see, they are worried about their lives, and some girl, who doesn't even look like a ninja, just laughs. But they did not suspect that Naruko, examining the competitors, decided who to dismember and bury in the forest. Here, she noticed the kunai with her peripheral vision, and simply moved her head away. He swept a few centimeters, crashing into a tree on which she leaned. Turning her head and examining the kunai, Nara noticed the poison at the end. Anko only grinned, to which Naruko responded in kind. Anko knows Uzumaki, she saw how that Anbu drives. That's holding back laughter. You can't just take an Uzumaki, she suddenly yelled and, pulling out a kunai, threw it at the guard standing next to Anko. Not expecting this attack, he managed to stretch out his hand, into which the kunai crashed. Kunai with poison. With snake. Everyone was just in shock, to say the least. And only Anko fell to her knees in a hysterical laugh. Anko remembered exactly how Kushina, when they threw a kunai at her, shouted this phrase and missed. I just hit the ambassador, who the day before, the most powerful and great, in her own words, the fortune-teller predicted death. In general, that dude did not die, but how he yelled, how he yelled. He told the whole truth, all his feelings. So when he was cured, he ran around the village all day and cursed everyone and everything. Oops, how uncomfortable it turned out. I'm so clumsy. Naruko exclaimed too loudly and feignedly, smiling slyly and trying to calm the fox. Let me help you, here's some water, we'll wash the wound, she muttered, taking out a bottle from her bag and, pulling out a kunai, poured it on the wound. Suddenly yelled, poor thing. Oops, I mixed it up with acid. Oh, how to be, what to do. Now everyone was laughing. Sakura covered her mouth with her hand in horror and whispered. What did he do to her? Gaara, standing next to him, spoke softly. I remembered him. Yesterday he poured sake vodka on her and yelled about the demon all over the street. Ah, then he got off lightly, Sasuke sighed, glaring at the tree with a frown. Author's note, a tree? What a fucking tree. I created. In Sasuke's opinion, Naruko was very bloodthirsty on 2 counts. 1. Very lousy mood. 2. Too good, like today. And in the second case, there was usually more blood. Naruko, stop this circus. We have an exam. Made an attempt to calm Sasuke's girl, but Naruko was clearly not in the mood to be sad or allow herself to be humiliated. He realized that when he saw Naruko's eyes turn around. They shone and were so bright, as if there was a fire in hell. The sight took many people's breath away. Sasuke just swallowed and put his hand to his forehead. "Sasuke, do you like tomatoes?" A question that sounded just above the ear introduced the guy into a stupor. "What?" He turned and saw that the red-haired woman suddenly calmed down and looked at him with childish curiosity in her eyes. "You like tomatoes, don't you?" Let's say, Sasuke tensed, he didn't understand what Naruko was up to. And she suddenly dreamily looked at the sky and laughed a little. And then with the most dazzling smile said, "When are you going to invite me to the wedding?" Ha 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 ha. Laughter was heard from all sides. The Uchiha tried to be angry, but a smile still appeared on his face. "Uzumaki, motherfucker," he groaned, raising his eyes to the sky with a smile on his face. The hysteria was calmed by Sarutobi, who appeared after 20 minutes. Starting the tournament with grief in half, he, shaking his head, retired. Team 7 made it to the tower without any problems. They took the scroll from some team from Rain, reaching the tower literally the next day. They waited a long time for the other teams, sitting with the sandstones in the room. In another hall. In general, when the two teams realized that they had turned the wrong way, they barely made it to the end of the ceremony. Third stage. All the thoughts of the genin were occupied only by him. And he came. The first fight is Naruto versus Neji. Well, what can I say? Naruto kicked him in the ass. And like everything. No, Hugo was still talking something there, but we, of course, did not listen to him. The fight between Shikamaru and Temari was simply amazing, and although Shikamaru surrendered, it was clear to everyone that he was the winner. Sasuke versus Gaara. Naruko was looking forward to this fight very much. And what a bummer it was when Gaara's opponent was changed to some idiot from the Rain, who didn't even show up for a fight. But Sasuke got Kankuro. And Sasuke was losing, and Uzumaki couldn't figure out why. Uchiha badly repulsed, weakly evaded. But he still did it, and when Sabakano got exhausted, then he just took off the genjutsu. All the residents, except for the Uchiha and some of the clan rulers, were in shock. Lee got Ino. Everyone counted on the fact that the Bushibrow would lose quickly. However, he quickly moved across the field, not allowing himself to be subdued. And at some point, he just got behind Ino and knocked her out with a blow to the neck. Warm twilight slowly covered Konoha. Tired Chunins, genin and ordinary people, already quite drunk after the exam, moved like snails, walked through the streets. The sun, at exactly the same speed, was sinking down, causing young children to stop and wonder, where is it falling? On one of these streets there was a group of people. Well, how was it? Let's take a closer look. Sakura, Ino, Temari, Shikamaru, Kankuro and Chuji were walking around at a leisurely pace. A little ahead, with the stubbornness of a ram, Naruko dragged Sasuke and Gaara, because, in her opinion, they moved like noodles in ramen. Uchiha unsuccessfully tried to escape, and Gaara obediently walked, looking in surprise at the hand that the Uzumaki was holding. "Uzumaki, let go. Release your hand. Stop dragging me." Sasuke did not lose hope. This angered the dog no more and more. How can you not like being held by the hand? And no one but Naruko. Catching himself on this thought, Gaara blushed and completely confused in his feelings for this girl. "Naru, where are we going?" Gaara's soft voice finally made the Uzumaki slow down a little. "To the best place on the planet," she exclaimed with enthusiasm. "Hey little one. Did you hear what he called you?" "How?" "Agr. Naru." "And what?" "Wait, how?" "Naru? Nobody called me that." As the surprised Naruko pondered the name, the fox rejoiced. Now his Jinchuriki will go wild and he will show Shikaku. However, The answer caused him to trip over his own tail and collapse on the floor with a crash. Cool. I like. What? Don't growl, Kurama. Are you upset? No. Well, you weren't offended, were you? No, I'm not talking to you. Hysterical, she yelled back and turned to the road. By the way, very timely. What you said? The girl exclaimed angrily, to which the guy hastily repeats the phrase. That you can't eat more than me. Are we arguing? On desire. Let's. I bet on Chuji, you can't even imagine a lazy voice. I don't see the point in this competition and I never thought I'd say it, but no one can win this Naruko. Well, Sasuke, of course. And I'm for Choji. It was insanely difficult for Sakura to vote against Sasuke, but in her opinion, she could not vote for the opponent. I agree with Sakura, Choji can't be defeated, Ino. Naruko, Gaara informed him laconically. I'm also for Uzumaki, nodded Kankuro, who will obviously soon be her fan. Moreover, most likely, Gaara will also support the cries of the village. Uzumaki are the best of all. If you calculate her weight and the kid. Opportunities. I'm for fat, but Temari didn't have time to finish. Shikamaru quickly closed her mouth, and the Konoha people breathed a sigh of relief. Temari, shall we go? The genius asked, thinking along the way that he, thank Kami, had time. Kankuro and Gaara visibly tensed up. Well, of course, their sister is now being dragged somewhere by a man who kicked the hell out of her in the exam. But Ino whispered quietly. Calm down, he'll just explain that Choji is by no means to be called fat. Oh, okay. And the fight began. After 25 bowls of ramen, Choji collapsed onto the table, exhausted, while Naruko finished her 26 bowls of broth. True, having finished drinking, Naruko repeated the action of the enemy, but said with a satisfied voice. Ah. I said. How? Phew. I will. Train, and I will win. I will win. In general, I will defeat you. Nobody could believe it, because everyone who bet on Naruko did it for fun. Well, now it's Naruto's turn to make a wish. Well, that's a completely different story. 2 days have passed since the day of the third stage. Time flew by quite quickly and imperceptibly, but on the last day, Naruko and Gaara quarreled. And no, it wasn't a scandal involving Kurama and Shikaku. There wasn't much screaming. They simply stood and looked at each other, occasionally exchanging monosyllabic sentences. Both of them looked rather hostile. Their approaching teams could not understand what had happened, because no one was clearly going to tell, and the conversation looked something like this. Yes. No. I say yes. But not me. That's stupid, you didn't even try to penetrate. No, you're stupid. I would even say stupid. You speak to me, you translate to yourself. But in my opinion, it's the other way around. That's the whole conversation. Gaara's POV. What's wrong with her? How can you not understand such things? It's elementary, but it's useless to explain to her. That's stubborn. So let's show her that you're right by force, Shikaku almost purred, who was in a great mood. No, she's wrong, but I don't particularly want to kill her. For now. Ah, bored. It all started with the fact that I went out for a walk in the morning. Today is Saturday, many shinobi rested on Friday and now they are probably being tortured by an evil demon, which will be more terrible than a jubi. And it's called a hangover. But not the point. So. Full of hope to walk alone, the presence of Shikaku is not considered, I went to one of the training grounds on the outskirts of the village, overgrown with forest. But, to my surprise, someone was in the forest. Or rather, not someone, but Naruto. She was dozing peacefully under a tree, and her unchanging katana lay nearby. The scarlet hair was slightly disheveled and loose, so they, following the example of the hostess, settled down on the grass. I quietly approached, examining the girl. And he approached quietly simply because I walk like that, not because I'm some kind of maniac there. Although, in fact, I am a maniac. But not like that. Deciding that nothing much would happen, I just sat down next to me, leaning my back against a tree, and began to do what half the people of the planet Earth do. And what, you ask, intrigued? And I will answer, nothing. Just sat and stared at Naruko, stared at one point around Naruto. After a while, she shifted and nudged me slightly with her head. I looked up from the grass above and saw something that almost made me smile. Well, it's like seeing a cat. Such a soft one. Dear. Naruko propped herself up on her elbows and sleepily wiped her eyes with her fist like a child. Finally, opening her eyes, she focused her attention on me. And here I don't really understand what happened. A huge amount of water poured on me, and Uzumaki was about 3 meters to the side. It didn't take long for me to realize that it was Naruko who used the water technique and jumped away. Your own ramen. Databeo. Wah. What are you doing here? She exclaimed, stuttering strangely and putting her hand over her heart. I'm sitting, I answered, still in a stupor. Yes, I see that you are not dancing the polka. What are you sitting here? Fucking pervert. I thought you were normal. And you? Psycho. What? Yes, I went out for a walk, just sat under a tree. Hysterical. Jumping up, I was indignant. Yeah, let's excuse yourself. You, Ramen, are like Jiraiya with his fairy tales. There is no point, no plot, just vulgarity. No, if you do not take this into account, then these are very lyrical and interesting stories. Blurted out, in one breath. Oh no. Jiraiya-sama is a very good writer, he doesn't know him as a person, but although there is a lot of censorship in his novels, there is still a sense there, and he will not allow insulting his idol. Yeah, if there is even a drop of sense, then I will add mayonnaise to the ramen. Do not talk nonsense. And so it went on until ours arrived. Somehow unanimously, without saying anything, we decided that they did not need to know the details of our conversation. End POV of Gaara. Hey guys, what happened here? Temari whispered to Sasuke and Sakura, who had arrived earlier. I have no idea, they came a minute ago, Sasuke also whispered. Sakura, of course, paid attention to this and wrote it down in her mental notebook. Gaara, why are you wet? Kankuro asked gently. He, as if waking up, turned his head in his direction. Looking around for a second, he glanced down at his clothes and chuckled slightly in displeasure. Go ahead, I'll catch up, Sabakano muttered softly and, throwing an angry glance in the direction of the Uzumaki, went to the hotel to change. Gaara, our things are almost packed, you'd better hurry, Temari managed to shout before he disappeared into a whirlwind of sand. They're heading back to Suna today. Well, or rather, they will be taken to the desert, and then they are already on foot. Naruko, despite the quarrel, decided to conduct them all the same. When they almost reached the gate, the sun turned the sky purple, as if warning, hey, I'm getting up. However, even if it were already in the sky, it would be covered by hundreds of clouds that seemed to be wadded from the earth. Then Gaara caught up with them, and somehow imperceptibly joined the company. The sensei of the Sonovites had already left, saying that they were waiting for him in the village, and they could get there themselves. And absolutely nothing foreshadowed trouble. Naruko's mood even improved as she imagined how cloudy it would be today. But an hour earlier, Tuchi-san passed by with bowls of noodles. He was startled by a cat, causing several bowls of noodles to fall and spill their contents onto the pavement. Picking up the broken bowls, the cook left, considering not to clean up the ground. And now it seemed to Naruko that everyone was moving too slowly. That's what she said as she quickened her pace. Don't run like that. You'll run into it, Sasuke muttered, sighing heavily. Uzumaki did not pay attention to these words and continued to rush down the street with vigorous steps. And then, she slipped on her least favorite ramen product, menmi. And what does slipping lead to? That's right, to fall. And then Naruto started to fall. But it's Uzumaki. She began waving her arms and leaning back. But that's not all. She slipped on the noodles and turned 180 degrees. Falling right into Gaara. He, who did not expect such a turn of events, fell to the floor with her, and fell so that he was lying on her. But then a mouse swept past them, followed by a cat rushing headlong. The younger dog's favorite animal is Sabakano. And it was it that pushed Gaara's hand, and he, not keeping his balance, covered Naruko's lips with his own. All this happened in 2 seconds. And for another 2 seconds everyone just stood in awe, they were very surprised, in short. And the laughter of Kurama and Shikaku served as a signal to revive. Although no one heard them, except for the Jinchuriki, it looked exactly like that. The embarrassed Chunin bounced off each other like fire from water, blushing like a tomato. Naruko, scolding everyone and everything, muttered, "Yes, ramen this day," and quickly took off in an unknown direction. Gaara did the same, only now he rode off into the forest outside the village, forgetting that carts were prepared for him. After a while, Sasuke's voice sounded. "Well, I told you, you'll come back. Tsunade, I'm begging you. I'll do anything." "Well, I can't anymore." "No, Sarutobi-sensei. Not going to. Let's agree. Grandma Tsunade, let's do this, I will bring you someone who can drink you up. And if he does, then you will become Hokage." The sonorous voice cut through the strange atmosphere hanging in the office. "And Naruko, where are you from?" Sarutobi exclaimed in surprise. "What did you call me?" Senju exclaimed no less loudly. "So what? Do we argue? Let's do it. Tsunade. Naruko. Tomorrow, at the training ground number 7, around 8 p.m. Treaty. If you lose, you will serve me for a whole week." "Heh." "Ah," Sarutobi creaked as he lowered his head onto the table. He is already so many years old, and the person who is suitable for the role of Hokage, Tsunade, refuses. And now this controversy. Well then. Now I just have to hope for the Uzumaki's victory. Speaking of her, the girl had already rushed off in an unknown direction, leaving the door to sway from side to side. Naruko's POV. "Alright, let's find Itachi." "Listen, little one, what are you thinking?" "Nothing special. Everything here is as simple as everything ingenious. Remember, 3 or 4 years ago, I learned how to create objects in the subconscious? Let us suppose. I then, out of curiosity, made you a bunch of bottles of sake. Well, it's vague, but I remember. It's understandable, you drank them all. It seemed to me then that you were quite sober, but I realized that I was mistaken when you spent the whole next day lying like noodles in broth. But it's not that important. Stop. Just don't say you want me to." "Exactly. Smart fox. But how? She can't get in here." The astonished fox didn't even pay attention to how Naruko called him. "And for that I need Itachi. He said that he learned such a genjutsu, with which you can put the consciousness of one person into the consciousness of another. He will place the granny in my subconscious straight to you, well, and there it's already off and on. Yes, you are a genius. I have no words. Lisa, remind me again why I agreed to this." A quiet voice, usually unemotional, was now filled with some kind of disbelief and a lack of desire to understand what was happening. Well, first of all, you can't refuse me, because this is a request, and you are the best friend and will always help in trouble. Sucker, grunted Shursui, who had come to admire the spectacle. He will simply penetrate the genjutsu and admire the drunken fox and the future Hokage. And secondly, the girl continued, ignoring the sarcastic comment, you are interested in testing the effect of genjutsu. Oh, right, thanks. Everything goes. Yeah, I feel, hide, she already whispered in response and called out to one of the three sannin much louder, hey, Granny, I'm here. Also, when you lose, you'll stop calling me that. Not seeing the need to greet the Uzumaki, she simply continued walking towards her. Well, where is the one who will outdrink me? What? Did not come? No, why not? Now everything will be. The girl smiled and lightly clicked behind her back, thus giving a sign to Itachi. A second later, everything changed and they found themselves on the soft grass next to the waterfall, behind which sat the fox. For a long time, shortly, but they finally gave Tsunade a drink of valerian, explained the situation and offered to finally begin to resolve the dispute. Half an hour later, Naruko spat and lay down in the shade under a tree, telling her to wake her up when they were done. After a while, it wasn't Tsunade, Uchiha, or even Fox who woke up Naruko. Opening her eyes, she realized that a red tail lay on her legs. Stop, what? It was a huge, soft, fluffy and, for sure, warm tail. So, Naruko, you're getting carried away. Calm down. Somehow getting out from under the tail, Uzumaki noted that she was lying alone in the subconscious, not counting the fox, of course. Lightly kicking her tail, she came out of the subconscious and was surprised to find that it was almost morning. Looking around, the girl looked at the sleeping Tsunade, and a little further in a sitting position, Itachi and Shursui were dozing. Walking quietly over to Shursui, she shook his shoulder. Itachi looked tired, so Naruko rightly decided to wake up his best friend. Shursui, Shursui. Wake up, what happened after I fell asleep? Eh? He blurted out incomprehensibly. He felt no danger and immediately calmed down. Ah, the Kyubi one. Then Itachi passed out due to fatigue, well, and I. For the company, she grunted, interrupting unceremoniously. Well, yes, you can say that, the Uchiha smiled, standing up and stretching. Oh wow. It's already dawn, we've been sleeping since about 5 o'clock. Clearly, you need to somehow carry them away. To her. That's how one of the three sannin, the great medic, the great loser became the Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village. Exo. 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 Angry Naruko, beating the poor tree. She's been doing this for half an hour now. But what annoyed her even more was the blush on her cheeks. In fact, she should be just furious, but... No, she was angry, but not only. There was also some kind of awkward, embarrassing feeling, previously unknown to her. Fox, on the contrary, was in a wonderful mood. He almost tap-danced his tails. What a wonderful day. What a wonderful stump. What a wonderful me and the evenness of being, heh. Shut up, Rug. Nobody asked your Fox opinion. It is worth clarifying that the whole conversation took place mentally. Quiet, well, it's still wonderful. The parody of being, la. Damn, I just missed this now, she cursed out loud, looking at her hand. The one had a mark on it, which meant that Tsunade was calling her, and most likely for an ANBU check. Now I'm clearly not in that state. Although. No, just now I'll have fun. Kurama happily jumped up and started humming the song louder. Don't, it's necessary, a hoarse voice sounded in the forest, scaring away squirrels and hedgehogs. It is necessary, Fedya-san, it is necessary, and the shinobi with the eagle mask is no more. So, the second one is ready. That's wonderful. It's time to return to the village. La, la, la. Nothing can ruin my mood. What? What kind of ramen, Grandma? I am not going to. No way. This is what Sasuke and Sakura listened to for several minutes along with Kakashi. They didn't know the details, but they had enough information to understand Naruko's displeasure. All Team 7 knew was that the Uzumaki had been given a mission to Suna for about 2 months. Sakura was indignant, trying to hold back her screams of indignation. After all, this is a single mission, also to Suna, it's such an honor. But she refuses. Though, if you remember what happened a couple of hours ago. Then the door opened and an angry girl flew out of it, and the Hokage only shouted in pursuit. Leave tomorrow at dawn. I'll never argue with you again. The Jinchuriki yelled back. I adore this woman. Truly, a woman in the role of Hokage is an ideal. Kurama laughed, already lying on the floor exhausted. POV composition. Well, in general. Something that, but this case from Naruto did not expect. It's necessary, on Shikaku's Jinchuriki, on the one who is called the Sand Demon, to fall and kiss at the same time. I, in fact, should yell at her, but... Tail in my mouth, I'll die of laughter. Hee hee. If I didn't know Uzumaki, I would have thought that they would become a couple. Heh. Oh. No. 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 Don't. End POV composition. Shikaku's POV. I do not know what to say. This is Kyubi, the Nine Tails. His Jinchuriki should be scary, kill right and left, but this one. Yes, even a kiss. Heh, well. This is funny, I won't hide it. Small, and you are a Lashara. And in response, silence. Well, okay, think about it. End POV Shikaku. Evil Naruko was at home in a few minutes. She was angry too much today. And it's time to end. But what to do? Anger, after all, will not wave a white handkerchief so easily and will not dump it away. It will be like pain and bitterness from the loss of loved ones to devour from the inside, forcing them to bite their elbows and erase the bones in their fists into blood. Having looked around the apartment out of the corner of her eye, she decided to take out her rage on the cleaning, which she carried out, by Narek standards, recently. Horrified by the mess that reigned here, Uzumaki got down to business. Carried until the evening, the girl wearily sat down on the bed. Having sealed everything that is needed, mostly ramen, in a seal on her hands, Naruko collapsed exhaustedly on a soft blanket, falling into a deep, serene sleep. Morning. The bright sun blinded the wandering animals and birds in the forest with its splendor, and the blue skies beckoned to reach out and wave in the air. The birds, as if charged with sunlight, sang louder and more beautifully than usual. Something rang on its aureole, painted bright yellow. The nightingale resounded through the green more often with a soft melody, and the singing of the warbler slightly cut the ear. Shining with blackness, the koel screamed. Not all birds preferred to sing early in the morning, some viewed the territory from a height, fluffing their feathers. For example, the turiko examined the clearings, turning the green scallop first in one direction, then in the other. White fluffy clouds slowly glided across the sky, like boats, changing with the sun every few minutes. In one part of the sky, a horse was visible, with slightly oiled legs and without a rider. Her cloudy muzzle had no face, and it was difficult to understand whether she was glad about it or not. However, she was free and that's probably good. Moreover, how can one be sad when a little further, Sagatsu-san flies on his sleigh dash? And at the other end of the sky, a huge oak sprawled, having lost its acorns somewhere. The wind, apparently not wanting to lag behind the ensemble of nature, quietly sang along with howling in the forest and rustled with a tambourine from the leaves of trees. Birds that didn't want to sit on their asses, or whatever they had, were flying around looking for breakfast. One of them, namely the swallow, was extremely curious. Flying past a strange place, she could not resist and flew there, not forgetting to fly into the trees and trying to be invisible. The swallow was still small and her mother strictly forbade her to fly anywhere. But how can you stay here? After all, these huge and colorful trees are so beckoning. And they also have no leaves and a lot of hollows of the same shape. The swallow sometimes saw that someone appeared in these holes. Someone big and scary. But she never flew right into the middle of this clearing and did not know what was happening here. At first, the swallow was apprehensive and tried to be as secretive as possible. However, realizing that there were no living creatures here, the bird began to look around with interest, making beautiful turns. Wandering his gaze through the trees, the attention of the cub was attracted by a particularly large and mahogany tree. There were some strange signs at the top, and the top itself was perfectly even. Sitting down on the strange things that enclosed this area, and reminiscent of branches, she examined everything. And then, she noticed something why she herself did not notice how she took off. Her mother flew at her, her eyes sparkling angrily. They flew back into the forest, the swallow flying away, and the mother trying to catch up. At an hour like 6 in the morning, the shinobi, early birds preferred the pleasant slumber to the brutal reality. Lying in bed, minutes turned into seconds, hours into minutes, and the desire to lie down all day became more and more irresistible. With difficulty opening their eyes and yawning so that the dislocation of the jaw could become quite real, they gradually crawled out of their beds. It is difficult to be cheerful on Friday morning, especially knowing what kind of working day awaits them. She was no exception and succumbed to a good mood. So. The seals are full, the room is shiny, there is no ramen in the house. It seems to be everything, thought Naruko, deciding for the first time in her life to close the apartment with a key. Stop. Where is my wallet, you ask? With a small sigh, the girl returned to the house, taking the frog stuffed with yens. Listen, little one, came a thunderous voice in her head. Where are you going so early? Is the first question. And why don't you run to the sand village yet? This is the second one, Kurama asked, lazily examining his tails. He really didn't understand. The girl was given the task, you leave at dawn. And not only did she miss the dawn, but she is going to no one knows where. To Tucci-san. I just can't help but say goodbye and eat ramen. Does he work so early? Fox was genuinely perplexed. This ramen surprised him more and more. Ichiraku works around the clock. You walk with me every day. Naruko was indignant, already almost reaching the tent. I prefer to sleep at this time. I'm going to be sick of this ramen soon. Do you have any idea what the smell is in the subconscious when you eat it? Does he smell? Wow, I didn't know. I wish I didn't know either. Good morning, Tucci-san. Uzumaki lifted the curtain and with a smile, Allah, 32, entered. Nachan, you are so funny today. Tucci's eyes flashed in the steam-covered shop, and somehow slyly. What about yesterday? You rejoice, go, that the boy has earned, huh? He slyly winked at the girl, whose cheeks were like poured apples in the rich man's garden, in which he and his team were on a mission. No, today is just an Orameni day. Well, good, it is. There. And even the fact that, she spoke cheerfully at first, but with every word she began to mutter more and more quietly. My guide in Suna will be Gaara. I don't. It'll hurt, the girl already completely whispered, lying on the counter. Come on, Nachan, don't worry. I think another free ramen will lift your spirits, huh? He laughed and placed a bowl of fragrant smell right in front of her. Thank you. Itadakimasu. She swallowed half a serving at once, licking her lips. That's it, nothing can stop me now. I was given a task, yum. Show everyone, yum. In Suna, like, yum. Need, or rather, like, yum. We are here, yum. Leading. Phew. This is the Uzumaki I know. Listen, how are you going to get to Suna? And I'm on foxes. I'll just call, you know how cool they are. So fast and the wind is still pleasant in the face. Only hair in the mouth climb, but it's not really a problem. Wow, wonderful. Well, nothing, you'll get used to it and we will promote ramen. Will I settle down? Not understanding, Naruko even looked up from the portion. Well, yes. Marry that boy and you'll be the best ramen chef in Suna. The embarrassed Uzumaki decided to quickly change the topic. Well, there's no ramen for you. Oh, by the way, sorry, Tuchi-san. I won't be able to visit you for about 2 months. I'm sorry, but I bought ramen and I'll eat it in Suna, remembering you. Oh yes, since you taught me how to cook it, then in my free time I will definitely cook it. This is so touching, Nachan. And a joyful cook hugs a cheerfully laughing girl right across the counter. Okay, I'll go. See you, keep your ramen in shape. I'll come and check. And jokingly shaking her finger in the air, the girl rushed to the gate. Necessarily. Waving from where the handkerchief came from, he shouted. And somewhere in the subconscious, with no less wonderful weather, Kurama somehow strangely grinned. I wonder why my father called me? Gaara mused as he walked across the sand. The weather wasn't bad, I just wanted to rest, he sighed, continuing to look around the surroundings. A good one is, of course, who cares? For Suna, the weather was simply gorgeous. But people from the same village of the mist will fry. It is possible that in the literal sense. People wandering the street smiled, exchanging fleeting glances. Even strangers. Animals that usually prefer to sleep in the shade have now crawled out into the sun. A cat lies on the roof of a bookstore, tossing and turning and bathing in the rays of the heavenly body. His black fur shimmered and his claws dug into the roof. Kotiara opened his eyes and stared lazily straight at Dogno. He looked back at him. Gaara himself did not notice how he stopped and just looked into the eyes of this creature. Both eyes were filled with curiosity and not wanting to look away. It meant losing. Gaara noted that the cat's eyes reminded him of someone. Red, with a vertical icon. Whose eyes are those? He repeated these factors to himself several times. And at the moment when it dawned on him, the guy woke up from a sonorous voice that sounded a little further away. Mom, look! Uncle looks at the cat. He doesn't flinch. And you said it was stupid. Get down, Uncle. These screams made Gaara let out a chuckle and involuntarily shift his gaze towards the sound. Turning around, he saw a woman in the crowd with waist-length hair and brown eyes. She held the hand of a boy of 3 years old, who looked at him with delight, and tried to escape. At this cry, people began to turn around, first laughing, and then noticing who this uncle was, they stopped and quickened their pace. The boy's mother also understood everything and tried to take the child away, but he was not going to give up so quickly and confidently pulled the woman towards the son of the Kazekage. However, noticing that he turned his eyes to him, the boy exclaimed, "No! You blew it!" The boy waved his arms indignantly. "Well, I don't think so," Gaara said, unable to contain his smile. "Why?" The fan was perplexed. His mother, apparently, slightly relaxed, seeing that they were not going to kill them, but she held her son's hand just as tightly. Well, the Jinchuriki squatted down to talk to the boy on the same level. The cat looked at you too. It means a draw. The child looked around and really met the eyes of the cat, breathed a sigh of relief. Well, thank Kami, otherwise I thought you had 100 kosk, he muttered. Oh, Mom, where is Sasuke? He turned sharply to the woman. Sasuke at the bookstore. Let's go after him, she said softly, but hastily. She turned around and tried to leave, but the boy cried out. Mom, what's wrong with you? She almost fell in surprise, looking at the child in surprise. How about goodbye? Yes, that's right. Goodbye, she whispered, and began to move quickly in the direction of the bookstore. Bye. The kid shouted joyfully, barely keeping up with the woman. Gaara just waved at him in confusion. I rarely meet such children. Usually everyone runs away, flashed through his head. Listen, the Kazekage won't kill you? I heard the dog, but a rough voice in my head. Shikaku, and it was him, was already rather tired of listening to this intellectual conversation. That's right, you have to go. Long corridors with sparse windows and dim lighting. Oak doors and carpets. You wouldn't want your enemy to live in such a place. And footsteps resounded in this hell. Gaara moved here with the help of sand, figuring that if he just walked, he would get there in 20 minutes. And this is already too long. Here is the main door. It was also made of oak, the same size, with the same handle. It was no different, except for the sign, Kazekage. And the atmosphere. Holding out his hand, he knocked and entered. The shinobi didn't pay any attention at all. A man with red hair sat at a mahogany table. Slowly, he sorted through the papers and put stamps on some of them. Gaara walked over to the table and stood at attention. But nothing has changed from this. So bled Sabaku, although he was used to the fact that the Kazekage was not very talkative, but this silence strained him. He has come, Raza muttered, putting down the last paper. Sorry, he added, a little quieter. I have a task for you. You probably know that there is a rather tense situation between the hidden villages right now. Therefore, it was decided to make an exchange of experience. Messengers were sent from every village to every village. You will guide one of them, he concluded. Gaara raised an eyebrow in question, which showed quite a bit of surprise. Is he implying that this conductor needs to be killed? No. Everything is written on your face, the Kazekage sighed. It's just that other shinobi, if you can call them that, refused to do this task. They're scared, dog, but Senior prevented another question. Scary? What is this monster? He said it as usual, but realized that it sounded extremely stupid. Such a phrase from a monster is like a joke. Well, a monster is not a monster, but you have to see her off. So, the main thing is not to miss it. Now something will happen. Of course, I doubt that Kankuro and Temari lied to me, but... Yes, I don't want to lie. If only there was truth, if only there was. Raza thought, feeling how everything inside begins to seethe with interest. Here is her file, he held out his hand with a small folder. Name is Naruko Uzumaki. And time seemed to stand still. It froze with Sabakano's hands. The younger only lightly touched her and stopped, feeling a strange sensation rise up in his throat. And the older one could barely contain his grin. It only lasted a few seconds, after which Gaara removed his hand and asked. Do I have to complete this task? And what? Are you a coward too? Feeling triumphant, said the father. No. I have my reasons. So, is it necessary? Taking a deep breath, Gaara said. The smile on the Kazekage's face disappeared and simply said. No. Think of it as a mission, not a task. Any questions? Yes, the guy said after a few seconds of silence, clenching his fists. However, he couldn't afford to lose his temper. When will she arrive? Due tonight. I have no idea how. But it must come. Free. Yes, and without any quibbles, Gaara simply took the folder and walked out the door, barely restraining himself from knocking the hell out of it. The sun was slowly setting, almost dropping below the horizon. For the first time in several months, light clouds appeared in Suna's sky, albeit monotonous, but for the villagers this was also a novelty. Accustomed to either clear or stormy skies, many people simply went out and admired them. It was on such days that the best artists and writers of Suna set to work with great pleasure, creating unprecedented masterpieces. For example, the famous writer Takatsuki wrote My Dear Kafka on a cloudy day. Gaara walked slowly towards the gate to Suna. Walking, he examined the houses made of sand. Rarely, but there were houses made of wood. They stood out because they were brightly colored and necessarily decorated with fabrics or something similar. The animals began to move and it was easy to see how they darted in one direction, then in another. Earlier, as a child, he also noticed that animals begin to move in the evening. He asked his uncle, who read him a story. If told, its meaning could be explained in a few sentences. All animals are intelligent and have their own language. They play the fool and let people caress in order to win their trust. And as soon as night falls, they go out into the streets and gather in groups where they discuss plans to take over the world. Gaara was so amazed at the story at the time that he just couldn't stop asking questions about it. Yashimaru just laughed and said, I heard that the author of this book found out all this and hurried to send it to the publisher. As soon as he handed over the book and went out into the street, he realized that night was already falling. He hurried home, but then he was attacked by animals. Unfortunately, it is not known what they did with him, but the author disappeared after that. I think they wanted to get the book, but they were too late. They decided to publish it, as they considered it a fairy tale. And how did I believe? Gaara wondered, grinning. Yeah. Uncle knew how to powder his brains. However, he heard a scream. Sometimes he simply would not pay attention to it, but the voice seemed vaguely familiar to him. Turning sharply away from the gate, which he had almost reached, Gaara moved to the side. Finding there an alley that led somewhere into the unknown, he, without wasting a minute, went there. The lane was, to put it mildly, not the most rosy. The sandy walls were smeared with something, there was garbage on the floor and fed the flies flying around here. The stench was disgusting, so Sabakano quickened his pace. Already seeing that there was some kind of illuminated area ahead, he made a sandy eye on the move and launched ahead. What he saw made the guy almost fly into the sight. Two men, 10 years older than him, turned towards the sound. In front of them, pressed into the wall, the boy was crying, that he was so stubbornly rooting for him in the fight with the cat. Gaara winced at the smell of alcohol. Moreover, it came from these two men, and they stood at different ends. Uncle! The boy exclaimed happily, trying to get out. However, he was pushed hard into the wall, causing him to sob and fall to the floor. Bastards, the boy hissed. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed the boy's mother lying next to the tanks. Alive, just knocked out, flashed through Gaara's head. He felt the woman's chakra and it calmed him down. What did you yelp there? One of them, completely in the insole, rushed at the guy with his fists. But he didn't even move, a movement of his hand and the uncle flies right into the wall, breaking his head and breaking a couple of bones. It could be easily understood by the sound. The second, apparently, the Jinchuriki found out and tried to run away, but Gaara only clenched his fist and left him like ramen after the Uzumaki. Uncle! The boy somehow jumped up and joyfully hugged Dogno. He was a little taken aback, but hesitantly hugged the boy in response. What is your name? L. Light, said the small one, wiping his tears. Okay. So, Gaara turned to the woman and hesitantly began to approach her. Well, yes. Just passed out, just like I thought, Gaara concluded as he watched the boy walk up to his mother as well and gently lift her head. She is alright. Should wake up soon, he told Light. He nodded and suddenly looked somewhere to the left of his shoulder. Gaara looked around in confusion and froze. Naruko jumped off the roof, muttering furiously. Naruko? Oh, hi. Yeah, damn. She wakes up. You should at least put on a bandage. And I'm not talking about painkillers, doctor, ramen fuck you, she exclaimed, going up to her mother and putting her hand on her forehead. She instantly lit up with a bluish light and after a few seconds the lady opened her eyes. Hi, she muttered as she stood up. The boy's mother took a half-sitting position and looked around. Brother, will you be my sensei? Cheerfully, however, as always, asked Light. He waved and showed how Sabakuno defeated the villains, and then again asked to become sensei. And all this in 5 seconds, Gaara could not even understand what exactly they wanted from him. Naruko, translate, please, he turned to the girl, who only laughed at the boy. He asks you to be his sensei. Fine. Hooray. Wait, what? Gaara woke up, but it was too late. Light took his mother by the hand and sped away in an unknown direction. Gaara was left with his hand in the air after them. But, he tried to say something else, but it didn't come out very well. Okay, enjoy. By the way, well, you have security. They didn't want to miss me. Me? Well, they shouldn't have. I had to come and meet. So it does not matter. I threw them out anyway, too late. Ah, got it. Well, can you show me around? And you will have to do this 5 times. I don't have a very good memory for the area, but you still have everything the same. Okay, but give me at least 1 sentence to the end of the pro. Cool, let's go. Uzumaki exclaimed and joyfully drove out of the alley. To Carrie, the guy sighed and ran after her. He ran after her, trying to understand. Where does this smile come from on my face? Just like her. Sagatsu-san, one of the 3 Santa Clauses in Japan. Takatsuki is a writer from the anime Tokyo Ghoul. I don't know if it really exists or not. Your soul is as beautiful as the moon. The moon that is covered with a net of curses. Let it be hard, you know. Just believe in yourself, and you will become like the moon. The luminary that kills curses. Gaara himself did not understand when he began to like the full moon. And not only the full moon, but just go out at night and admire the sky. Because now Shikaku has come to terms with being a prisoner and doesn't try to break free on nights like these? Not really. The sky is, perhaps, the last thing that could interest the dog no. Although the issue is debatable. At night it was beautiful, quiet and calming atmosphere. But he fell in love with everything clearly not because of this. And why is he thinking about it now, looking at such a bewitching surface of the sky and feeling something snoring on his shoulder? Something, both literally and figuratively. In direct terms, this is because Naruko is the Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed fox and many villages would like to get her. And figuratively, this is because Naruko is now completely destroying the image of a dangerous enemy, turning him into a sweet and harmless girl. Which is frozen, flashes through the guy's head. Sabakuno practically never got cold, because it is quite difficult to do this in Suna. Indeed, at a temperature of 50 degrees during the day, at night the mark on the thermometer reached 0. The sand gives off heat very quickly and therefore at night it remains so small that it is not even noticeable. It's still warm at sunset, and Kami is with him. Gaara gave the Uzumaki an absent-minded look once more and decided. Was no was, he gently began to move his fingers, causing the sand to rise to their roof and slowly approached the teenager's dash. Freezing for a few seconds over the delicate skin, loose rock hesitantly began to envelop the girl's body, like a cocoon. Several times she twitched, threatening to wake up, but then she continued to snore sweetly. In the end, the Jinchuriki was wrapped in fine grains of sand, which, contrary to expectations, did not inflict a single scratch on her. Gaara himself was about to return to his occupation, called Dum-Dum, but he felt his arm being hugged, like the Shikaku plush that Naruko managed to give Sabakano for his birthday. Swallowing the lump that came from nowhere, the Jinchuriki turned his head. And there they looked at him with the most innocent eyes, as if before that she had not chased light throughout the village, shouting, "Come on, you bastard! Rotten ramen, I got you now," and similar swear words. In her style. The silence was not intrusive. Or was? From an overabundance of emotions, the guy simply could not understand it. And Uzumaki stared at him in the most brazen way, barely blinking. And soon Gaara began to strain. Seriously. Even the eye twitched. "Naruko?" he asked with undisguised doubt in his voice. But she, as if waiting for him to break the silence, said, "Yes, you screwed up." "What?" Gaara's surprise knew no bounds. And she, taking advantage of the moment, began to twitch. Dropping sand. "You're sick of me dreaming, that's enough," Uzumaki shouted, having already got out of the sand nets and grabbed the guy by the shoulders. "Dreaming?" repeated the bewildered Sabakano stupidly. And then it dawned on him. After all, she constantly fell asleep here, and they were sitting here not for the first time, and Gaara, out of the kindness of his soul, author's note, took her to the hotel. So she thought it was a dream. Yes. The main dream is the same. No, well, of course, I like him. But I have such a bad fantasy that in a dream, where anything can be at all. Rivers of ramen. Sea of ramen. Oceans of ramen. And I sleep. I sleep in a dream. Well, ramen, and then she was stopped by laughter. Gaara just laughed heartily. First time in the last few years. "What are you laughing at?" Naruto blushed and glared at the boy indignantly. He got up, wiping his tears from the hysterical attack that had begun, and the glory of Kami, which had already ended. "It's not a dream, Naru," and as proof, he pinched her arm lightly. She sighed and looked at him in confusion. And she blushed even more than before. And this time, not out of anger. "But I woke up in a hotel," Naruko whispered, still hoping that all the water in the world would turn into ramen. "But I took you to the hotel," Gaara replied in the same manner. "Ah. Damn." She flopped back onto the roof and, after a moment's thought, hugged his arm again. "What?" Completely innocent children's eyes looked at Dogno. "Well, yes, innocent," he chuckled to himself and shook his head slightly, saying nothing. "Listen, I wanted to ask," receiving a questioning look, Naruko continued. "Well, about your student. This one, like her," she winced slightly, trying to remember the name. "Matsuri?" he helpfully suggested. That's right," Uzumaki nodded and shivered slightly. Gaara felt her tense as she asked her next questions. But why remains unclear. So here it is. Do you notice anything? Any views there or hints? Similar? No, I don't think so, he answered without hesitation. And what? Gaara noticed that the Uzumaki hurriedly looked away and smiled contentedly. Nothing. Just wondering. I don't like that smirk. What a smirk, what are you talking about? And again innocent eyes. Sometimes Gaara feels like he wants to poke them out. But then he realizes that he can't do it. Shaking his head slightly, he shifted his gaze forward, admiring the moon again. But Naruko was like a child who lacks attention. That is why she decided to get Gaara completely. Listen, can you explain it to me again? Well, look. There was a 2-month mission in Suna. Then I was in Konoha for 3 months. And now I'm here permanently, but it doesn't matter. In these 3 months, you have found another student. How? What how? Do you think I won't be able to find an apprentice? Well, considering your reputation. Understood. If I tell you, will you fall asleep? You are going to be silent. I'll take that as a compliment. Well? Flashback. Seriously? Do you think that someone will become my student? Gaara didn't even think about subordination. And there were reasons for that. His beloved dad again threw out such a trick that any circus performer would nervously smoke on the sidelines. It was necessary to think of giving people the opportunity to learn from their relatives. Who are the relatives? That's right, these are 3 sisters. And only one of them is a girl, but this is not so important. They became Chunin, and the youngest became Jonin. What Temari and Kankuro were very jealous of, although they did not dare to challenge the decision. Well, that's right, the brother himself is a psycho, and the father, if you piss him off. They will start to get angry, they will piss me off. And the consequences will have to be wiped off by the poor cleaning lady, who is already even sorry. And if now they were delighted with the news about the students, then it was the Jonin's turn to be indignant. Yes, I'm serious. No one will go, walk Vajya-san. If it goes, it's their problem. The students will come tomorrow at 10. Free. Come on. It's been a surprisingly chilly day today, if I may say so. However, such beloved clouds were not tempted by good weather, preferring to fly anywhere but over Suna. One day they will pay for it. One day it will be hotter than ever everywhere, but warm in the desert. And the clouds do not disdain and begin to fly there, but they will not be allowed. Who? Who won't let them? This is nonsense. You say. But Haruki Murakami will say, wind, sand and even the sky. The wind, which itself has heated up due to the scorching sun, will be the main weapon, blowing the clouds to pieces. He will also take on passengers, in the form of grains of sand, who will just as bravely rush into battle. And the sky, or rather the part above Suna, which dreamed of framing itself with white and fluffy beads, will be offended. And he will not tell the wind what to do, calmly letting it into his domain. And the clouds will leave, dissolving into pieces. But these are just guesses. In the meantime, residents complained about their absence, which did not prevent them from doing other things. And it is today that beginners have to choose a sensei who will teach them. It will certainly be difficult to do this, but almost all genin have decided where, or rather to whom, they definitely will not go. Dog no Gaara. As soon as they heard that name, their hamstrings began to shake, imagining how they were being torn apart by the sand. And it was not surprising, because quite recently he crushed a passerby who jumped too sharply from behind a turn. Well, rather, rumors and gossip changed everything. In fact, Gaara was just walking and thinking, he reached that alley. Then this weirdo jumps out, with screams and huge eyes. The dog twitched and somehow automatically sent sand in that direction. Well, something like that. Gaara arrived at the gathering place just in time, the remaining students were approaching. Everyone was talking about something. Someone shouted, someone vice versa, not wanting to seem too loud, almost whispered, forcing the interlocutors to listen. As soon as the Jinchuriki approached, all conversation subsided, but Sabakano got used to not paying attention to it. You get used to everything. A shinobi approached the tables near which the sensei stood. Smiling, he began a speech, the essence of which can be described as follows. Hello. Choosing a sensei is very important. Whether you die or not depends on this choice. Good luck. It only lasted 15 minutes. At first, Gaara tried to listen, but then he realized that there was no need to do this at all. Closing his eyes, he thought. Finally, the shinobi told everyone to go to their new mentor. Naruko brainwashed me with ramen so often. Can I really eat it? Flashed through the bored dogno in his head. Excuse me. A timid voice made the guy open his eyes and look at the girl carefully. Brown hair, brown eyes. Nothing remarkable, however. I wanted you to be my teacher. If you don't mind? Oh wow. Sabaku, but it didn't even immediately dawn on him that Shikaku exclaimed this, and he didn't think it himself. Well, yes, probably, he answered as uncertainly as Matsuri. She was completely at a loss, noticing the absent-mindedness of the sensei. And there was silence. Minute. And then 2. Hey, Gaara. Well, can you at least ask the name of the student? Temari asked, who had already managed to let the guys go, having appointed a training session. Yes. What's your name? He turned to the girl. Matsuri, she introduced herself. Could you help me choose a weapon? Good, Sabakuno examined it and then turned to the tables, examining the contents. Picking up the katana first, he glanced at Matsuri once more before putting it back down. And he took Johio, a weapon that consists of a long rope, with a handle at one end and a metal dart attached to the rope. He approached Matsuri and handed it to her and said, "This is Johio. When rotating and touching the enemy, it inflicts wounds on him. I think it will suit you." The girl, looking at the weapon with some apprehension, took it hesitantly. "It's just. My parents were killed as a child and I don't really like weapons," she said, afraid that Gaara would misunderstand her gaze. End flashback. Well, something like this. It's been 3 years already. After finally finishing his story, Gaara turned to Naruko and let out a sigh. A red-haired crown snored peacefully on his shoulder. "I will never tell her anything again," the guy muttered, slightly offended, but he could not remove the smile from his face. Commentary on Chapter 15 or A Live Student. These are good, but a dead one is even better. That's all. We're done, dear friends. A huge thank you to those who have been with me since the beginning. And those who just came. Comment, point out the pros and cons, how to write better and how not. Maybe there will be a bonus chapter. So do not be surprised if you find an extra chapter. I also have other fanfiction. One is a banter about hits who dream of fucking. Fall in love with Gaara. Read it, I think you'll like it. Thanks everyone. NN Naruko, what does that mean? Gaara's eyes now could be compared to the full moon, which he so fiercely hated. She is my you. Don't call her that. The girl clenched her fists. Do not call her yours. She shouted after her, waving her hand and forgetting about the bloody katana in it. True, having realized herself, she, of course, hid it. Naruko is a person who thinks before he speaks. But not now. In a fit of anger, she awakened the genes of Kushina, who said everything she thought. And the realization of the said phrase comes later. What? How? How to understand it? Like. Well, this is, and now, for example, Uzumaki blushed and took a small step back. However, looking into the eyes of a guy who is not yet her, author's note, by, Buhaha, she took a couple of steps back, out of the corner of her gaze noticing the inexorable approach of the wall behind. Yes, it doesn't matter. Well, but she killed. She offered an outrageous game, to refuse which means to lose you. Well, to lose, ramen in my mouth. And to agree is insulting because of the rules. Well, I won by removing my opponent. Not according to the rules, but still, at the end of the story, the girl tried to smile, but noticing that Gaara began to quickly approach her, she just as quickly began to move away. Only after a few moments Uzumaki rested against the wall, feeling its roughness. But Uzumaki is what Uzumaki is for, so as not to lose hope and a chance to escape, so Naruko began to move her gaze to all the possible places that she could slip through. Unfortunately, there weren't many. And to be more precise, there was none at all, because Sabakano sharply pressed her against the wall of the alley. "Argument," he said softly, bowing his head. And the girl tried to examine the eyes of a friend under the bangs. And it would be better if she didn't. Constricted pupil, shifted eyebrows, and this fury in the eyes, madly frightened Naruko. No longer even needing to be pressed, she herself seemed to be trying to pass through the wall. Uzumaki. Fucking Uzumaki. Huh? I mean He's going to kill you now, let's intervene. No, don't you dare. I'm on my own. But no. Well, I warned you. Tell me everything about the dispute, immediately. He pushed her hard, causing her to hit the bricks painfully. Letting out a kind of scream, the Jinchuriki clenched her teeth, for the pain in her wrists from the hands pressing her was strong, and the flying grains of sand scratched everything that was possible. Chakra blocking kurama. Just let go, Rameno somehow, in this position to talk. Gaara slowly let go of his hands, but his stance didn't become any more relaxed. No, I've changed my mind. She jumped out of the alley and with the help of chakra she ran around everything she could. Yes, and you can't either. Uzumaki. Shikaku's Jinchuriki gritted his teeth and rushed after her. Since the assassin had added the Nine Tails chakra to her legs, she moved an order of magnitude faster than usual. They ran out somewhere outside the houses, into a park of stones. With the speed of eating Naruko's ramen in a hungry state, they found themselves in the middle of the park. Sand capture, he whispered. The sand rushed heavily on the girl, wrapping around her legs. As soon as Naruko realized that she had to get out and tried to jump out, Gaara clenched his fist and she fell onto a large rock. Glory to Kami, flat. Though it doesn't hurt so much, as soon as this thought slipped through the girl's heated head, the guy clenched his fist harder and completing the picture, sent millions of grains of sand that immediately began to scratch the delicate skin. It hurts, the kunoichi breathed out, narrowing her left eye. Stop it. Enough already. She was hurt too, Sabakano answered, restraining himself so as not to kill the girl. She suffered too. She also asked to stop. He already shouted. You don't know what happened before. Uzumaki started screaming too. What the hell? Why can't I use my chakra? Thoughts swirled through her mind. No, damn old man. I knew you couldn't eat his ramen. So tell me. No. But why? Itch. Flashback. The breeze drives the surface sand, causing people to wince and close their eyes. The coming night skillfully enchanted with its beauty, allowing mere mortals to admire it. The moon peeked out from behind the cloud, illuminating everything no worse than its brother, the sun. People in Suna, out of habit, tried not to leave their houses during the full moon. Naruko decided to eat ramen in Suna for the first time, because her supply from Konoha had run out. Most of the establishments were closed for the night, so Naruko searched for quite some time. Finally, the Uzumaki found the place where the ramen came with the surprise. Surprise can be absolutely anything. For example, complete blockage of the chakra or vice versa, strengthening. Works in an hour, for several hours. Are you sure? Come already. Zadalbala. Okay. But I don't think it's a good idea. Well, so. But it'll do, Naruko muttered as she left the building. The mood was not the best, and she could not understand why. Well, the ramen looks pretty bad. You only ate one serving. You. One. Oh, Matsuri. Hey ramen day. Night. She exclaimed. Kurama himself, without realizing it, could easily cheer up his Jinchuriki. Yes, and the idea that she will not spend a walk alone, even with a girl whom she wants to kill more than her life, but still played a role with someone. She turned around and somehow muttered in confusion. Oh, hello. Hey Naruto, can we talk? Yes, sure. Judging by the tone, something serious. Look how Naruko tensed up. Sha bit meat now something will happen, Kyubi thought, habitually grinning. They walked slowly, walking and enjoying nature. Rather, Konoha's kunoichi was enjoying herself, and Matsuri was thinking how to take her somewhere far away. They were passing by an alley when she suddenly stopped and said. Naruko, wait. Listen, And what is your relationship with Gaara-senpai? Naruko froze, feeling every cell in her tensed. We have a normal relationship, but what? Well, just. I decided that you love. I have already decided everything for myself. Nobody asked your opinion here, the Jinchuriki snapped, feeling how uncontrollable rage was slowly consuming her. Well, then. This, she sighed, not noticing the prevailing atmosphere. I have an argument with you. Let's say. Come on. Whoever gets Gaara-senpai first will get it. Get it? Uzumaki herself was surprised at the hoarseness of her voice. Heh, how cool you replaced the word seduce. What? No, I didn't have it, she tried to justify herself, waving her hands. This. Exactly this. But it already belongs to someone. And to whom? The sand kunoichi raised her eyes in alarm, stubbornly ignoring how Naruko pulled out her katana from the seal. How to whom? A smirk spread across his face. To me. And the blow hit Matsuri. The blade went down the neck, cutting off the head. Blood poured from the severed part of the body. Yes, and from the neck too. But the girl only tightened her grip on the weapon and began to strike at all parts of the body. There was blood everywhere. Slowly flowing down the fingers, under the already cut clothes. In some places, severed veins peeked out of the skin. This went on for about half an hour. Having almost calmed down, Naruko finally stopped gutting the girl's body. She stood with a katana in her hands over what used to be a body, breathing heavily. Just then, she heard a rustle. Slowly turning around, Naruko choked on air. Gaara stood there, staring at her in amazement. End flashback. X-itch. I can't. While Naruko was remembering this, Gaara walked over and hovered over her, pressing his wrists against the stone, lightly brushing the sand away. The Uzumaki blushed and tried to get out. Why? Asked the guy, not even noticing these attempts. What's the difference? Big. You must have a good reason to kill, remembering, do not call her yours, Gaara decided to emphasize, my student. He watched as Naruko froze for just a second, and then began to struggle harder. Naruko, don't make me use Kanuya, punch. The pupils of the girl decreased, and memories of how she herself taught him this seal swam before her eyes. It was after the mission, they were given the day off, and the Uzumaki finally decided to teach the dog some kind of seal. Kanuya is a seal with which you can penetrate the memories and feelings of a person. No, don't you dare. She shouted, feeling that Gaara shifted her two hands into his one, and with his free one, folding his index and middle fingers, began to press on her forehead. Okay. I will tell. Well? Gaara gave her an attentive and stern look, poses, however, without changing. Well, you know. I decided to go look for a place that serves good ramen in Suna. As it turned out, where I ate was not the best. Get to the point. Yes, much closer. I'm not telling you how I found it, what kind of ramen is there and… Naruko. I understand, she swallowed, feeling his fingers begin to press harder. I met her, she practically spat out. We decided to take a walk. Then, she stopped and said. Well, Naruko hesitated. Gaara just sighed, still glaring at Naruko with a demanding look. Well. Whoever gets you faster, you will belong to the one. All heard? Release. She twitched again, but much stronger. AI. What? What are you doing? She yelled as she felt the sand squeeze her wrists as Gaara pulled his hands away. Naruko, I'm completely disappointed in you. Said Dog No. Do you really think that I will believe in this nonsense? In that case, you would just send it and not bother. Do not lie. I warned you, he whispered. Naruko just lay there and stared at the boy in disbelief. Naruto just lay there and didn't understand. Naruko just lay there, feeling a tear roll down her cheek. A tear he didn't notice as he continued to seal. A second, and a white light blinded Gaara. The Jinchuriki continued to stare blankly at him. So that's what he thinks of me, right? That I'm an insensitive creature who doesn't care about anyone and everything, including himself. Confused, Gaara stopped supplying chakra and sand opal, giving Uzumaki the long-awaited freedom. She slowly crawled back, getting out from under the dog, but, as it were, it didn't sound strange. Naruko. Gaara whispered dumbfounded, looking at the girl's face, which was full of tears. I understood everything. See you, she tried to escape. However, Gaara managed to grab her arm and pull her towards him. No. I'm sorry, I'm a fool. I didn't mean to, Naru. The Jinchuriki muttered, and then lifted her face up and kissed her. He kissed imperiously and possessively, not allowing the Uzumaki to breathe. He wrapped his arm around his waist, and the other pressed his head. The girl sobbed and tried to push him away. At first. Then she put her hand on her shoulder and answered. Let clumsily and uncertainly, but answered. They broke the kiss after a while, blushing and not knowing what to say. However, embarrassment did not prevent them from breaking their embrace. Gaara, you're a jerk, Naruko said softly, smiling weakly. Well, tell me why I love you, huh? I don't know, he grinned. But don't worry. I don't get it either, why am I so into you? Wow, where did you get those words? Yes, it's a long story. We do not seem to be in a hurry, well, tell us. Well Gaara, ramen. Rejoice that my chakra is still blocked. Blocked, huh? He repeated cunningly. Hee hee. Hey, what are you doing? Yes so. On it and the end.